Hey everyone, it's Darth Nilalus here, back to you today with another video. And I know it's been a minute or a little while since I have made a video, and there is a reason why I didn't make a video in a little while, because of something very serious that happened to me earlier this year, back in the month of May. But I don't want to bring any more attention to that thing that happened to me earlier this year back in the month of May, because it really stressed me out and it made me honestly more worried, more cautious, more skeptical on whether or not I should either keep even making or doing YouTube videos on my channel, or if I do, just, I guess, be more like, I don't know, more careful in the future from here on out of saying things, certain controversial or offensive things that...
You mean to tell me that you're actually going to start using your fucking brain and not saying shit that people can then use against you to point and laugh at you or ridicule you or lambaste you? Wow. Looks like something finally got through that lead-lined fucking skull of yours. It only took like what? It took only like what, 4.5 years, maybe 5 years for you to realize that saying insane shit on the internet, whether it be unintentionally or intentionally, or like leaking details about your personal life that you probably shouldn't be saying out loud, it took you that long to get that across. Why the fuck does he have a power strip hanging on what appears to be a fucking coat hanger? Seriously, look in the back, there's like a fucking towel rod or a hanging rack on the wall there. And for some reason he has a power strip hooked through it. Could you not have just had a floor-mounted outlet? Looks so fucking bizarre.
I don't know, people will report me for, I don't know. But anyways, I don't want to focus too much on that. I don't want to bring too much attention to it because it happened. It's in the past. There's nothing I can do about it. What's done is done. But anyway.
No, if only you had this approach to just being an incel, you wouldn't need to keep making like a dozen or so videos every year complaining about it. This is just my opinion, this is just my thoughts, but for example, like the X amount of years old, still a virgin incel, like, I'd just axe that series if I were you, because it's just getting... Here's the thing, if you make one video about it, fine, but if you're making like a dozen of them as you're on YouTube every year, and time keeps progressing, it starts to become less of a fucking... I guess you can say like a window into your life, and it starts to become more like a time capsule that more or less displays the slow and steady decay of a person's mental faculties because they've tried to prioritize having sex and getting married instead of just trying to give themselves some degree of footing so they can function as adults in the real world.
On to the video. Now, before I start out this video, I just want to say really quick here, like, I guess sort of a disclaimer, if you will, that this is all kind of sort of a hypothetical video in a sense, because the topic of today's video will be about the kind of girl that I want and expect, like pretty much my dream girl, if you will. But the thing is, I don't believe that any such girl exists, or ever has for that matter. And if so, she or they haven't existed or even been alive or around for a very long ass time now. Like, they're long gone extinct. And, you know, when I talk about it in today's video, you'll know and understand just what exactly I mean by me feeling or believing that the kind of type of girl that I would want and expect just doesn't exist anymore. Like, they're long gone and extinct. But anyways, on to the video. To start off this video, I just want to say that the first of many things in which that I would both want and expect from my dream girl is that I would want and expect her to be a virgin. Because I, myself personally, am a virgin. A sexless, kissless, sex deprived, just sexually frustrated and extremely enraged virgin man. And if I were to get with a woman of my choosing, of my picking, of my desire, whatever you want to call it, however you want to word it, it would only make sense that I would want and expect her to be a virgin because I'm a virgin. And I feel like that would only make sense. I feel like it would only be fair and right. Now, obviously, if I were a man whore, if things would have been different for me, if I would have been a player, a Chad, whatever, then obviously I would not think that I deserve to be with a woman who's a virgin. And speaking of that, I honestly hate it when even there are guys out there in the world, and there are actually like quite a bit of them even, who are man whores or players or whatever the fuck you want to call them, who think they deserve or feel entitled to a woman who is still a virgin, even though there are like literally hardly any of them, if any at all, anymore. And there are so many man whores and players out there in the world who want and expect, demand, desire, feel entitled to, and feel that they rightfully deserve to get with a woman who is in fact still a virgin, still has her virginity, to where her virginity is still intact and she has not yet lost it. And that really pisses me off because I don't think that is fair to that woman or to any woman, to any women for that matter, who are still virgins, if there are any anymore, which...
Well, here's the thing, it's just, there are definitely still virgins that are women out there, but the problem is, usually the reason that those women are virgins is because they're usually unattractive to most men, so most men won't approach them. Or they're people who are so incredibly, I guess you can say, cloistered away from society at that point. No, they don't really have any real human interaction aside from family members and friends. In fact, usually a lot of the women that end up being femcels or virgins are usually for the same reasons that people like you are, Isaac. It's because they also live in a very isolated environment and they have a very, very secluded lifestyle where they have a lot of disdain for couples and relationships, and they openly have a lot of hostility for people that are happy. It's basically be the same kind of people that are in your position, except they'd be women. Now, if you want to criticize assholes that use women because they're virgins and then dump them, yeah, it's fine. I understand the criticism because, yeah, you are fucking up a person's whole understanding of the human experience by just giving them one really shitty experience that should have been one of the best ones of their life. But the fact is, you wanting a virgin just because you're one isn't really necessarily all that good either, because it means that you're not willing to give that person a chance just because they've had one or two partners before. I mean, what if you found someone that had somehow more or less checked all your boxes, for example, and then you found out that they were not a virgin because they had slept with one person in high school years and 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 years ago? Would you basically call that person a whore and throw them out because they had one experience almost a decade prior? Or would you be able to look past that and say, you know what, it's been almost a decade, I imagine you're probably very pent up and very frustrated because you haven't had another partner in that long, if I'm to take your word for it? Or would you not see that as a reason to go with this person because of the fact that you and them might be very, very compatible?
Again, I don't believe that there are any, like, anywhere in the world, honestly, but if there...
Anywhere in the world, what? Do you think the moment everyone enters high school, the dick just flies into them?
There are, and if I am mistaken, then I don't think
It's not a matter of if, it's about how mistaken you might be.
that guys who are man whores, who are players, who have had a shit ton of sexual experience and who have used and abused and traumatized for life many women, so many women. And
What if it's a lot of sexual experience with one woman because they're in a long-term monogamous relationship? Then what? Like, for the people that have long-term relationships and they have sex often with their partner, would you classify them as the same thing, or would you say that the people who go around serial dating are the problem? Because sometimes you fluctuate depending upon what you feel in that particular moment instead of sticking to an actual standard.
these man whores, they don't feel bad about it. They don't feel sorry. They don't apologize. They're not regretful. They don't feel guilty or shame for all of the women that they have used and abused in their lives. And all those women have been traumatized for life. No thanks to man whores, players with all their fucking bullshit, confidence, self esteem, charm, good personality, or whatever the fuck. Like, these men are the scum of the earth. They are the worst possible kinds and types of men, but they are so easily able to fool, trick, deceive, or manipulate so many countless women into getting in relationships with them because they have looks, they have charm.
It's not really manipulation, unless you're talking about grooming, in which the case, yeah, that's manipulation, or if someone's genuinely trying to coerce someone that's legitimately naive. But the fact is, the way you're talking about it is that, like, people are, like, sitting there pulling some fucking hypnotist hocus pocus bullshit where they try to convince someone, you want to date me, you want to date me. No, that's not what happened. Like, some people just like, hey, I want to spend some time with you and get to know you better. You're an interesting person. I think that I could learn a lot about you from you. And I'd like to know if maybe you and I would be compatible to be in a relationship. Like, this is not the kind of thing that someone's manipulating when they come forward and just straight up say that. Now, there are definitely men who will pretend to be the nice guy who will play off a lot of their fucking actions without knowing how fucking creepy they are. Those guys are kind of assholes. Yeah, I get that. But the fact is, a lot of those guys are basically what happens before an incel turns an incel. They're like one stage away from becoming incels when they behave like that.
They have confidence. They have the kind and type of personality that women are attracted to like crazy and just fall for all the time. And, they also probably have status as well. Like, they drive around in nice cars. They have nice fancy cars, and maybe they live in a nice fancy house or apartment for that matter. Maybe they have a really good paying job. I don't know. Like, there is a long list of things that make men that are like high valued men with like status that makes women attracted to them, including like guys who are also tall. Women have crazy, insane, unrealistic, ridiculous expectations and standards when it comes to their ideal dream man, because almost all women ultimately want like men who are in the top 20 or 10% of men, whereas the bottom 80% are literally invisible to them, which is or was a scientifically proven fact.
It's not really a scientifically proven fact. It's a survey done by randos on the internet that want to try to get people into the manosphere, so they basically find women that are on the upper echelons, excuse me. They find people who meet that standard that's been established by Western society in terms of the beauty standards, and they ask them the ideal kind of men. Keep in mind the word is ideal. It means that a dream person. It does not mean that person is required to meet every single check mark on the list, one for one. It's literally their definition of what the ideal person would be. The ideal person does not mean that they are miraculously this person that comes out of the ether to satisfy all of their particular preferences and interests. It just means this is someone who they would have if said person could exist. However, a lot of women and even a lot of men are willing to flex on a lot of their, I guess you can say, expectations, so long as the person is someone that genuinely strikes them as interesting. That's the thing, you have to be able to strike that perfect balance of someone that's interesting and fun and seems to be a genuine, kind, caring person, as well as having the laurels to do the right thing. If you have those things, you're pretty much a shoo-in. However, if you have this whiny dickhead attitude that everyone's an asshole because they're happier than you, then guess what? You're not going to be happy yourself, and it's going to drive people away.
There was a study done on that, so I'm not making this shit up or just pulling it out of my ass.
Well, technically you kind of are, because this study wasn't even really a study. It was basically just a blind survey that they were doing to random women all over the world. But a lot of the women that were being interviewed were women that are on the more attractive side of women. They weren't randos, they weren't people that were pulled out of a crowd. These are people that probably could have had a pick from any man they wanted to, as long as the man themselves found them interesting. God damn, why is every frame of this a thumbnail?
And, these women, feel entitled to, feel they deserve, and demand men who are like 6 foot plus, like, I don't know, 6'3", 4, 5, I don't know. Like, and as time goes on, it always seems and feels and also looks as if women's standards and expectations of their ideal dream man or men seem to increase as time goes on, as either they get older, as they mature, the more this world goes on. I don't know, like, it's just, it's insanity. But, anyways, like, when it comes to me personally, I'm a sexless, kissless, raging incel virgin man. I am black-pilled, I'm nihilistic, I'm extremely dark-minded and negative, I am so very hopeless and full of despair, broken-hearted, broken to the core, shattered, like damaged beyond repair. I had hopes and dreams when I was a young teenager that all became destroyed, killed, ruined, wrecked, and just crushed. Like, I don't know. And I also have what's called dead eyes, which is someone who has been through a lot of suffering and whose hopes and dreams were destroyed, ruined, killed, wrecked, crushed.
Dude, your entire idea of suffering is not having a $10,000 gaming PC and not having a girlfriend or a wife. That's your idea of suffering. Now, I do understand the loneliness aspect of it. I do understand that desire to be loved and appreciated by another person. But the fact is, you've hinged your entire identity on the fact that you can't attract a woman. That's become your identity now. It's not become, well, it's something I can overcome. If I just work hard enough, I can get there. But instead of that, it's like, no, fuck all of you. I gotta be angry about it. I gotta make everyone else's life hard because I'm mad. Yeah. And that's become your whole fucking personality. Like, that's become the entirety of your being. Is just be as shitty and hostile as you can to random people because they tell you that your ideas are not beneficial to you. And then at the same time, you want to complain that your point of view is negative for you when you do nothing to really improve it. Like, I hate to compare suffering because I know that it feels like I'm trying to produce a straw man to some people, I imagine, but here's the real shit, okay? There are kids that come home every day to no parents being at home, to where they're neglected harshly because their parents either choose not to be around them or because their parents are getting high, shooting up heroin or snorting fucking oxycodones, or taking fucking fentanyl pills. There are people who come home to parents who beat the shit out of them every day because the parent feels like they can never do anything right in their eyes. There are people who have to come home every day and realize that the only reason that they exist is because their parents didn't have the money or just had the religious hang-ups that prevented them from being aborted, and they more or less have to constantly come to terms with the fact that their parents resent them for being born, but they don't resent themselves for not being properly cautious and when it came down to the night that that child was conceived. Your idea of suffering is so minuscule because it focuses only upon a surface level degree of what you would call difficulty. Meanwhile, other people who are not in the position to get themselves out of the problem are worse off than you, and you constantly complain about it as though you somehow being in the position that you're in just miraculously makes your own life more difficult than other people who are actually experiencing shit they genuinely can't do anything about because they don't have the authority, the power, or the agency to do so. Whereas you had all the ability in the world to fix your problems, you just decided against it.
Beyond repair. And I have been crushed and, just broken so many times over in my life to the point where I eventually ended up becoming this man, this guy who you all see and hear today. This is who and what I evolved into because of puberty, because of modern day women.
I wouldn't really say that's evolution. I'd say that's de-evolution because you're going backwards. You're sliding backwards on the scale of what is supposed to be human improvement.
Because of society, because of our upside down, backwards, twisted, perverted, degenerate, satanic, whatever culture. It, like, all that shit played a part into molding and shaping me into becoming the guy, man, and person that is sitting before all of you today. For those of you who are, taking the time to watch this video. So anyways, that's the first of many things that I expect and want in my ideal dream girl is for her to be a virgin, a sexless, kissless virgin. Now, I'm not saying like she would necessarily have to identify as a femcel or whatever, but I would prefer her to be a virgin because I'm a virgin, and I would want both of our times when we, first have sex to be special. And, losing your virginity is a big deal, or at least it should be. But unfortunately, we live in a culture and society where, people don't, care that much about their virginity. They don't value it. They don't appreciate it.
It's not that people don't care about it or value it, it's just that a lot of people got over that Puritan mindset of if someone has a sexual partner and they're not married and they're like no longer together with that partner, they're viewed as a whore. And people kind of got over that shit. Now, I obviously want everyone to be safe and responsible when it comes down to having partners, especially when you have like casual hookups because you could catch something very, very easy or get pregnant if you're not careful. But the fact is, it's not that people don't value their virginity, it's just the fact that it's not treated like this fucking sacred jewel anymore. It's not because people think sex itself is cheap, and it's not that people think a person's autonomy should be a tawdry thing they throw away once. It's just the fact is that society keeps moving faster and faster forward. And on account of all the stuff that our brains get bombarded with on account of being in school and on the internet, it's hard for a person to genuinely progress at their own speed now. Because people keep trying to say that you need to try to be an adult way too soon when you're a teenager. And then when you finally reach that part of being a teenager, you want to go back to being a kid again because you realize that you've essentially wasted something that was important to you. Like that's just me speaking from personal experience as well as just people that I know.
People who are still virgins, especially if their men, are made fun of, mocked, bullied, belittled, put down, degraded, you know.
Yeah, but they're usually bullied and put down and mocked by people that are assholes. That or the person that's a virgin is a complete dick, and then they wonder why they're not getting laid, and that's another reason they're being mocked. You're a prime example of this.
Just poked fun at. I don't know, like, it's unbelievable. But then women who are still virgins, if there are any left, which I honestly do not believe there are any left for even the slightest second, and even when it comes to other places in the world, I don't believe that women, even in other countries, are still virgins. I just honestly.
Well, actually, a lot, like in Japan, for example, from what my cousin told me. Like, she went to a co-ed school, but what she told me was the fact that despite a lot of the girls in her class being in relationships, keep in mind these people are like 14, so I believe they're either a second year or a first year in high school for them. But the fact is, she's openly told me, like, well, the reason a lot of people in my school didn't really get involved physically, from what I recall her telling me, is the fact that a lot of people's parents were very, very, very staunchly against them getting involved with someone in high school on account of the fact that it was viewed as completely against the traditional understanding of how a child should conduct themselves going through school. Japan is one of those few countries where they will prioritize education and employment over a person's social growth. Now, they do teach you good ethics and values, like when it comes down to how to be polite and stuff early on in school, like to give up your seat for an elderly person or someone that can't walk, example. These are good things that you do learn as kids when you're little. But the problem is, by doing so, they also kind of lose out on socializing and being able to have, I guess you can say, like, social niceties with each other in high school and middle school, because they're basically being pressured to succeed the moment they enter primary schools. So yeah, there are definitely virgins out there, and the thing is, though, there are virgins there are virgins that are girls that are made fun of too, mostly because of the friend that's always in a relationship, or the friend that always has like a string of bad relationships will usually badmouth their virgin friend because their virgin friend tries to give them sage advice, because they have the ability to look inside from the outside to maybe offer another perspective. But it's because they offer that fresh perspective that they're also mocked by their friends for being a virgin, even if that person's a girl. So it's not like it doesn't happen, it's just that you personally have not seen it happen yet. So that's the problem. You're basing a lot of this on stuff you've seen or haven't seen, but the fact is there's always an exception to the rule, even if the exception is not widely known.
Honestly don't believe that. I can't. Like, it is literally impossible for me to even imagine if there even is a single virgin girl anywhere in the world. Anywhere at all. In any fucking country, in any fucking continent. It just seems too good to be true. I wish there were more virgin women, but there is not. There are not. And, you know, I especially wish that there were still a lot of beautiful virgin women, but when it comes to the beautiful ones, most of all, they're definitely not virgins. And if anything, they're most likely the biggest fucking whores in this world, who are completely immoral, who are perverted and degenerate, who are hypergamous, promiscuous, and provocative, both in the way they dress, act, behave. Their personality is just garbage. They're so full of themselves, self-entitled, self-absorbed, self-centered, narcissistic.
Well, here's the thing. You are also self-centered and self-absorbed because you're basically complaining about problems you could have done something about, and you want to blame society because you chose not to do anything about it yourself. Therapy is an option that you could have easily tried, but you decided against it.
Pieces of shit. They're all put up on a fucking pedestal and worshipped because we have all these stupid-ass, retarded, blue-pilled cuck simp men who just put them up on a pedestal and don't just worship them and kiss their ass, but also send them cash, over the internet. Just for
Who gives a shit? Seriously, it's not like this OnlyFans model or this other lady getting money from a simp. It doesn't mean that she's taking the money out of your pocket. Why care? It's not really something I understand or really agree with in terms of like putting yourself out there for other people just to exploit you. But at the same time, if someone wants to hustle that way and they're an adult and everything's legal, I have no right to really come stop them or complain about it. I just don't understand why they do it. But I also understand that it might be something that someone chooses to do if they feel they might not have any other viable job market. Which is unfortunate because I know the pandemic caused a lot of people to do that, even teachers.
for existing, just for being pretty, And what's so very messed up is the fact that, women have this kind of, just kind of cruel, unfair advantage over men because, well, beautiful women, that is, because they're beautiful, but they also have their bodies, which men are crazy about. We're not just crazy about beautiful women who have a beautiful face, but also their bodies just drive us crazy and make us wild. And women know this. So they use their looks and they use their bodies to their advantage to get something from it, to get validation, attention, money, respect, guys falling for them and lusting after them like fucking crazy, which obviously is not going to be that good on her soul. If anything, it's going to mess her up for life, being a total e-thought or degenerate whore on the internet, even if she really isn't a whore in real life. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if some of these girls are still virgins. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, I highly doubt they are, because I honestly just could never imagine any beautiful women in this world still being single, still being virgins, who are so fucking hot. Like, I just can't believe that. And what's funny about that is I've seen many videos over the years on TikTok of exactly that, of many beautiful women who claim to be still virgins. And I'm not talking about like, they're single, like they didn't have a boyfriend for like a couple weeks or a month or a year or whatever. I'm talking about attractive women on TikTok, a lot of them, believe it or not, who claim to still be virgins, which I don't buy. If anything, they're what you would call fake cells, posers. I don't know, there's a word for them. I just can't think of it at the moment, but, it's just weird. Like, there's like like con artists or whatever, and obviously I'm sure these women know that if they claim to still be virgins or label themselves as virgins or whatever, they're most likely going to get more men who flock towards them and are like, oh, look how hot she is. She's still virgin. That's wonderful. Oh my God, I can't wait to get with her or whatever. I don't know what the fuck these simps think or what the fuck goes on in their minds. So I guess I shouldn't speak on behalf of them. But I mean, I guess I can at the most guess what they're thinking or feeling towards these smoking hot women on TikTok who claim to still be virgins, which again, I don't buy. I call bullshit. Like, I always roll my eyes every time I see these videos, and I always think to myself internally on the inside, too good to be true. There's no way in hell a hot woman, any hot women for that matter, from anywhere in the world, if they have, a TikTok account or whatever, that they would most likely still be virgins. No way in hell, not a chance. Every single time there's a beautiful woman in this world, she's always in a relationship. She always has a boyfriend. Always, every single fucking time. And that shit pisses me off. It annoys the hell out of me. It triggers me. It makes my blood boil. It makes me so bitter, angry, and just enraged like crazy, because I'm so sick and tired of every single beautiful woman being taken up by the worst possible kinds and types of men. And yeah,
And what if it's not a bad man, though? Like, what if it is someone that just genuinely loves this person and they've been together for many, many years, for example? Would you then complain about it and say that, well, she's not mine, so that makes it unfair, and that means he's the wrong man because he's not me? Seriously. You sound like the kind of person who sees a woman with her boyfriend or husband and then starts freaking the ever-loving fuck out because you keep, like, the I can treat you better bullshit fucking mentality. Honestly, that's what it fucking reminds me of. It reminds me of that fucking song where the person's I can treat you better. And then at the same time it just comes off as this creepy, borderline nice guy shit where the guy is basically trying to pressure this dude's girlfriend into leaving him. That's one reason I don't particularly like that fucking song, for example. Like, I don't like the song Treat You Better because it comes off as the kind of shit that a fucking creepy nice guy tells a woman to try to convince her to leave her boyfriend for him. That's how fucking creepy the whole thing is. And it's just as creepy when it comes from someone like this, where they constantly bitch about women not being attracted to them, but then they go out of their way to browbeat and bitch about the women having partners that might treat them better than he ever would. Because he has this 1935 mentality of how he should treat a lady. And then at the same time, he wants to convince everyone, I'm a forward thinker, guys. I'm a real forward thinker. Maybe if forward was 300 years in the fucking opposite century. Maybe then you'd be right.
yeah, women love those men. They adore them. They lust after those men. They can't get enough of them. And they just keep going back to them, never learning from them, never learning from their mistakes. And even future generations of women aren't getting any better. They're not improving in any way, shape, or form. And so when it comes to the modern
Well, what are you really doing to improve, though? That's a question I'd like to ask.
state of women, or even the future generations of women, I'm just devastated. I am heartbroken because I know that they're just still devolving. Like, they're just going down the drain fast. Like, nobody's doing anything to try to stop them, to try to help them, or whatever. I don't know. I feel like I am the most that you'll probably ever see of a person who is trying to help them and wake them up. But women never want.
What exactly would you define as helping someone? Because when I think of helping someone, for example, I don't think of talking shit to them about their preferences. Unless their preferences are kids and shit, in which case, yeah, you should probably say something about that because that's utterly fucked. But the fact is, a lot of your idea of helping someone just means you piss, bitch, and moan about someone else's preferences when it involves another adult because you happen to not suit those preferences. That's not exactly what I would call helping anyone.
To be told that they're wrong. They never want to listen to the truth. They completely ignore any and all truth about themselves. Any types of videos that make them look bad or whatever, even if it's the truth about them, and videos about them that they should watch so that they can learn something from them and maybe and hopefully wake up, no, they won't even bother. So when it comes to
This sounds like what would happen if Fresh and Fit decided to go with someone who looked like a hobo instead of a pair of douchebags that would pretend to be fitness experts. That's what it looks like. It looks like the Fresh and Fit podcast hired a homeless person to stand in for one of the dickheads that used to run the shit.
women, they're hopeless, they're a lost cause. There is no helping or saving them. So I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to try. It's a lost cause. It's hopeless. It is completely and totally flat out hopeless. I mean, with the way that women have been for the longest time, they would need an honest to God miracle to save them. And no person could do it. They would literally need some like divine spiritual miracle in order to help them, to change them, to make them wake up, to make them improve and get better, and resort and go back to the way women used to be a very long time ago, back when they were good back when they were traditional.
Here's the problem. Your whole idea of a traditional woman means that she just stays at home, takes care of the kids, and genuinely does nothing that she wants to do. Now, there are women who do enjoy being single, not single, but stay at home moms. There are women who've kind of settled into that mindset because that's what they prefer. However, you're basically saying that everyone should be the stay at home mother. Because for whatever reason, you refuse to accept the fact that a person might just want more out of life. And as I said, there are people who kind of settled into that role because that's where they felt the most comfortable. But the problem is, you're trying to say that everyone should just go back to that mindset, even though that mindset might actually be a major step backwards for a lot of people, especially people who have careers and a lot of aspirations they want to achieve.
Conservative, religious, modest, back when they had dignity, back when they
Yeah, you can take that religious bullshit and stuff it up your ass. Dude, you don't even go to church anymore. You've said it yourself that you've fallen out of step with your faith. So why then would a person be required to be religious if you yourself don't even adhere to the faith that you claim to worship? Moreover, your idea of modesty means that someone dresses like a fucking Quaker from the 13th century. You're not asking that someone just dresses in a way that's appropriate. You're asking that someone dresses like a fucking Quaker because the thought that someone's ankles might show gives you a hard-on.
they had self-respect and honor, back when they weren't hypergamous, promiscuous, provocative whores, both on the internet and
Not every woman is that way, though. I don't get why it is that your brain just keeps breaking every time you try to process that particular part. So here's this brain on the inside, this thumbnail here.
in real life, and just, sleeping around with so many guys and racking up a high body count. So much to the point it would make your fucking head spin. And what's crazy too is the fact that modern women often lie about their body count too. That is a very common thing for modern women to do. Like in podcasts, for example, if any of you ever bothered to watch any podcasts or even just clips of them, when women ever talk about what their body count is, they're most likely lying their sorry ass off, and their
Well, a lot of people don't want to talk about that because they're afraid they'll be slut-shamed if they are. Now, I think it'd be best if a person just doesn't fuck everyone that moves, if they demonstrate a bit of selectiveness. That way they can actually find a person who might genuinely love them and make them happy. Or even if it's just a casual relationship, just something that they can do that will make them not feel like they're being used and thrown away every time. The reason people lie about their body count, men and women. A man might lie about having a high body count because he doesn't want to be perceived as the inexperienced loser in his friend group. A woman might lie about her body count so that her friends will either think that she actually has the ability to get some if she wants any, or she might lie about her body count so it seems lower because she just doesn't want to be fucking ashamed. There's a difference between just simply saying, I wish you'd be a little bit more selective, but okay. And then there's being the kind of person that is like, oh, well, you had 2 past sexual partners and they were both people that you were with for many years separately. Well, that makes you a whore. That's your fucking mindset, is that if someone has an ex they've been intimate with it years ago, you'll call that person a whore. Even if it is just genuinely one ex-partner. And then at the same time, we want to lecture people about why it is they don't speak about body count, when people like you usually say that one sexual partner is one too many, if it was years ago.
body count is probably double, triple, or quadruple what
Who the hell would be able to get into who the hell would be able to get into the quadruple digits that wouldn't be an adult film star? Seriously. There's not enough hours in the day unless someone literally has just a line of dudes going in one after another for a whole afternoon every day for 30 years.
they're actually saying that it is, because it's probably far higher. And it's just so unbelievable, outrageous, and literally disgusting. It's disgusting.
Not as disgusting as being attracted to human shit, but here we are. I don't get why you want to lecture people about being disgusting when you literally are attracted to flatulence, shit, and piss. I mean, if those things are preferences, then there's something wrong with you. Like, no fucking joke.
It's not good. It's not respectful. It's disgusting. And yet, unfortunately, women who are like that, they're not scolded, they're not judged, they're not ridiculed, they're not shamed or bullied.
Yeah, they are. A lot of girls that have a lot of sexual partners are shamed and bullied normally by people just like you. And sometimes even by their own friends, because their own friends might be scrutinizing their decisions and say, why the fuck would you sleep with this person? I mean, I've seen this. I've seen this myself when it came down to like female members of my family, for example. Like there are conversations I overheard where my mother would literally be talking to one of my aunts and basically say, "Why in the hell would you sleep with this person?" And then they'd basically argue about it for like 5 or 10 minutes because your parents get sloshed at social gatherings and it becomes a thing where your parents argue with members of the family because they don't see eye to eye on that person's particular choices. But yeah, it happens more often than you care to think. Like, women will attack and belittle other women for who they sleep with as well. Same thing with some dudes. I mean, there are definitely some dudes who will openly make fun of their friend for taking a two home from the bar and criticize them for being a fucking idiot that's not being selective.
They're not held accountable, responsible for just whoring around. They're not punished in any way, shape, or form. I'm just sick and
What kind of punishment would you suggest people get just for having a bunch of sexual partners? Would you suggest getting the fucking pair of anguish?
tired of this world. I am sick and tired of this society and culture that just totally and completely allows them to get away with just about everything. And because they've been allowed to get away with so much for so long, that is exactly why they are the way they are in modern times. Why they have evolved into becoming these ratchet, disgusting, perverted, degenerate whores who are just out of control, wild, free, promiscuous, hypergamous, provocative, etc.
Word salad. Like, just say it. You're mad that people are fucking and you're not. Just come right out and fucking say it, okay? Now, here's the thing. I don't blame you for having a difficulty talking to women. I blame you for trying to make it everyone else's fucking problem and then trying to say that people that are just telling you to find therapy are somehow assholes for saying it, but they're giving you some of the best advice you could ever get from anyone. And here's the thing. Women don't get away with everything. A woman's not gonna get away with selling another person into human trafficking, for example. Just like how a woman's not going to get away with committing a mass murder. Now, there are definitely cases where a woman has gotten off a lighter sentence, but that's not the same thing as someone being completely absolved of all guilt. And trying to punish a person just for making decisions you personally don't agree with that don't really affect anyone but them in terms of their sexual lifestyle, who cares? You're allowed to disagree with it, you're allowed to criticize it, but people are also allowed to look at you and ask, why the fuck do you care? And it always comes down to, well, they're fucking and I'm not, so I'm mad. That's usually why it is. It becomes such a fucking issue to people like you.
But anyways, on to the second thing that I would want and expect in my ideal dream girl, which
It only took, almost a fucking half hour.
Is the fact that, and I guess in a way this sort of goes along with the first of many things that I said in this video that took a long time to talk about, discuss, and get off my chest. But the second thing that I would both want and expect in my ideal dream girl is for her to have never sucked dick or taken dick up the ass.
How the fuck would you know a chick's done any of this if you just ask her directly? Like, what, do you have, like, an application form just in there? It's like, has never given oral sex or received anal sex. Oh, you check those boxes, you've done these things. Well, get out of here, you're a whore. I mean, let's be honest. Why is it that anal sex disgusts you, but you're into people shitting? I don't get that at all. Like, you could argue that the first thing, albeit not really something that a lot of people would go for immediately, given what particular orifice it is, and you're trying to act like for some reason that feces is somehow more hygienic than the other thing. I don't understand. More importantly, why would you care if someone else has given a past partner oral sex? What, do you expect their dick to still be in her fucking throat if you kiss? It's just gonna slide down your throat and... Like, is that what you're just picturing? The dick's just like a fucking slug from the movie Slither. It's just chilling out in the back of her throat, and when you guys start kissing, it just launches itself down your throat in between your mouths. Like, is that the visual you're getting?
And that would pretty much go along with being a virgin, because if she is a virgin, then most likely she would never have sucked dick or taken dick up the ass.
Well, usually people that give fellatio, it's usually one of the things that normally happens in a relationship before people engage in intercourse. Now, I can't necessarily say it's 100% of the time. I'm going from like what a very small sample size of people that I know have told me in passing before I actually started dating the missus, because I was genuinely unsure how people conduct themselves. I mean, I understood the concept of consent and stuff, the same stuff you learn in sex ed, but when it came down to like what is kind of more or less to be, I guess you can say, what is within the ballpark of what might or might not happen in earlier dates, I don't know. But like it was different, entirely different expectations apparently. I shouldn't even say expectations. More like, here's what is possible, here's what's not. So I shouldn't really say expectations. I should say like within the bounds of plausibility.
But then again, I mean, I guess even a virgin woman could still pretty much technically do that and still be a virgin, because, you know, taking a woman's virginity, obviously you'd stick your dick in their vagina. That's how you would take their virginity. But if you're sticking your dick in their butt or in their mouth, then obviously they're not going to lose their virginity that way. And if that's the case, then I would want and expect a woman who would never do either one of those things or not even think about it, because I would want and expect my ideal dream woman to be, modest. I would want her to have dignity. I would want her to have morals. And if she had all three of those things, morals, modesty, and dignity, self-respect, she would never do things like that. She would
Dude, there are a lot of women who have a lot of sexual fantasies that a person will never fucking know about because they might not tell their husband or boyfriend out of fear that it might scare the motherfucker away. Like, it's mentioned by a lot of sex experts and a lot of people who do those sex studies, especially people overseas, in places like Sweden and Norway, where they do conduct a lot of these surveys where they ask women in private what particular things they like. And a lot of the things that women like in private are things that their husbands would not really be horrified or shocked by. It's things like, well, I didn't know you were into that. I wish you could have told me that. That's usually how a lot of women apparently do things. Now, keep in mind, this is based upon the region, so it might be, like, everyone's mileage may vary. But they found out that a lot of women in Sweden, for example, were into a lot of crazy, kinky shit. Now, again, mileage may vary depending upon the person, their particular stance on the matter, their particular regions, etc., etc. But yeah, this was apparently something that people were aware of, that people were finding out about their spouses from these sex therapists and from these experts that were doing these studies.
Never sell herself short like that. She would never stoop to such a lowly, disgusting, depraved level.
This coming from the person who, again, finds shit arousing. I mean, I hate to keep bringing that up, but really, it's like, at what point do you begin to realize the irony of your fucking statements? Like, at what point? Like, do you just not realize how ironic it is to say that something is lowly and disgusting when you're literally attracted to feces? Or does that part of your brain just deactivate? So my brain just turns off whenever I say something that might end up biting me in the ass. Yeah, I can tell. I can really tell.
Such as that, to do such filthy, disgusting, evil, immoral behavior, such as those two things in specific. And I would also want and expect my ideal dream woman to be just as much against that shit as I am myself and have been for years.
Okay, let's put the piece together so far. So you want a virgin woman who shuns any sort of physical intimacy except for vaginal sex. But then at the same time, you're also someone that is attracted to feces, urine, and flatulence. Alright. Let's put all that to the side for a minute and continue.
I would want her to hate that shit and to be just as disgusted as I am about it and hate other women just as much as I do who have ever done those things in their lives, even if it was just one fucking time. And
so again, you want a woman that will hate other women, and you basically just want to date like a female version of you. I think the only way for you to find your ideal dream girl, dude, is if you were to have a clone of yourself, age it up to be like 27, 28, and then you'd then have to alter the fucking chromosomes so that that becomes a female version of you. But the problem is, since it's a female version of you, it will automatically form an abhorrence and a hatred towards you, because they feel like you're trying to be yourself when you simply want to engage in a conversation with them, and this person will promptly abandon you and run away. So I guess you won't be able to go fuck yourself.
even if there were or are women who have only ever sucked a dick once or taken dick up the ass once, and ever since then regretted it and never did it again, they would already be poison to me. They'd be
Your idea of poison is literally you do one thing that you might not like or you might not have done it again because it turns out it's just not your thing, and then you cry about it for a fucking lifetime.
tainted, impure, immodest.
Why is it that you constantly talk about impurities when you look like you do? You look like a failed Agent 47 clone.
They would have no dignity, no self-respect or honor or modesty, or self-respect or anything like that. Like, I would never, ever date or marry a woman who's even done that one fucking time. Either one of those things or both. And even if she were to fucking gargle with bleach, I wouldn't give a shit.
If she gargled with bleach, she'd probably die because that chemical is highly caustic.
Even if she did that, like actually did that, which would be crazy, but even if she did, I still would never in my entire life settle for or accept a woman, any woman for that matter, who was ever sucked dick or taken dick up the butt.
Again, do you expect the person's dick to still be in them somehow? Like it's just a phantom ween going down her throat and just launches at you if you get within range?
And the thing about women who do that, it just makes me furious as hell.
Metal Gear Solid, the phantom ween.
Because there are so many women who do that shit. There is such a high number or percentage of women in this world, in this whole entire fucked up world, that suck dick and take dick up the ass gladly and willingly, which is nasty. Nasty as fuck. Like, I've oftentimes even looked up about like the estimated percentage of women who suck dick or take dick up the butt because I'm curious. I want to know. I am somewhat slightly...
Face it, deep down you want someone to fuck you, but you don't want to actually have to deal with the fact that this person might have had sexual partners in the past. Not only that, let's face it, the only reason you're so afraid of fellatio is because you're afraid that other dick is somehow going to be in their mouth from the past, and it's going to fly through their throat and you're going to touch ghost tips, and that's what freaks you the fuck out.
interested in, that sort of topic or subject, if you will, because I want to know just how far gone and hopeless and how much of a lost cause that women are as a whole.
So you look up something that you know is just going to depress you and upset you. Are you some kind of fucking idiot? Seriously, is your brain turned into mush?
And pretty much just as always, I'm proven right. My internal inward feelings and thoughts towards them when it comes to that sort of thing or other things. Like, it honestly pains me and devastates me and breaks my damn heart knowing how much women are into that shit. Both sucking dick and taking dick up the ass. Because it shows me as a man and as a person that women have no morals, they have no dignity, and they have zero self-respect. Like, they not only do not respect them.
Please tell me about self-respect. Gollum, dude that looks like a knockoff Agent 47, trying to dress like Darth Sidious, chilling out in what appears to be a garage at 4 a.m, screaming about his own personal insecurities and inadequacies, trying to blame women for them. Please tell me more about self-respect.
Themselves or their bodies because they're so willing to give up their virginity. Well, at least if it's to like a man whore player, Chad, whatever you want to fucking call those.
What if it is someone that just genuinely finds a partner that they believe they can trust, and then they sleep with that person but things don't work out? Are you then going to belittle them because things happen just to not work out? Because that's how a lot of these relationships actually are in the real world. Because the problem is, you're playing it off like every dude is a player, and that every dude that gets laid is like a serial dater. The reality is, most dudes that enter sexual relationships are people who wanted to have normal relationships, but maybe things just didn't go the way they expected. And for some reason you're trying to act like that's an unrealistic expectation to have, is that it's just people that date and then things just don't work out. Seriously, can you stop relying on incel forums to tell you things about relationships, because you're basically looking at people that don't know shit about anything and asking them for advice about everything.
Dickbag men. But also, just sleeping around and racking up an insanely high body count, even when they're still super fucking young, like, 18, 19, 20 years old, and their body count is still, like, in the fucking hundreds or thousands, like it is.
How the fuck is it gonna be in the thousands? Like, who the hell do you know that actually fucks thousands of people that's barely in their 20s?
Shocking. It's mind-blowing. It's so depressing. It's literally the most depressing, heartbreaking, like soul-crushing thing ever. And the same goes for women who suck dick and take dick up the ass, because they're so willing to do that. And oftentimes, men do not even have to ask them to do that, which is crazy.
Yeah, I'm so sure. I'm sure the moment at the first date, the chick's just on the fucking table, her ass facing him, spreading cheeks. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that she just walks up to him during their first date at a restaurant and just sits up on the table ready to go. Seriously, do you smoke crack on your days off? Well, actually, every day for you is a day off. You don't have work.
Crazy. Like, they don't have to ask, expect, or demand that a woman does that for them. Many men will never ask, expect, or want a woman to do that. She'll just do it like fucking spontaneously, as if it's like a part of them and their true wicked evil nature.
Evil. Let's face it, you get off to it but won't publicly say it.
Like, it's so messed up. Like, it would be one thing for men to want, expect, or demand his girlfriend or his wife.
If he demands it, then guess what? He will not get it, because he just comes off like a dick.
Wife to do either of those things for him, suck his dick or take his dick up her ass. But a lot of men don't even ask them to do that. They don't, expect it or demand it.
Is there actually a survey you've done to find this out, or is this basically just you making broad statements again?
Or we even want them to do that to them or for them, and yet women, again, they'll just spontaneously do it out of fucking nowhere, just like that, just get it out of the way. And these stupid, bitch ass, retarded, dumb as hell men don't even try to stop these women from doing that.
It's almost like men are horny creatures by default, and as men, a lot of us, unfortunately, cannot control our dick, because a lot of the times our dick starts doing a lot of the thinking for us. That's pretty much what high school is for a lot of young men. It's basically like, oh well, you're horny and you're a teenager, so you're curious. Your hormones are fucking going ape shit. So yeah, your dick is probably gonna make a lot of your decisions for you, even if it's like, wow, why the fuck would I do that later on? Seriously, were you ever a teenager, dude, or did you skip that whole part of your life and go right to this? Did it go from I want to be a kid? Did it go from like I want to be a firefighter when I grow up, and then it turned into fuck all the women, fuck all the women? Like there was like no intermediate stage with you apparently. Like there was no intermediate. Apparently there was none. There was no intermediate.
They never tried to prevent them from doing that. And this makes me just completely hate men. The men who have easy access to women and who are so sexually active and just sleep around, whore around, and are just such raging man whores and players or whatever. These are the exact same types of men who are so into women sucking dick and taking dick up the ass. They love that. They absolutely.
So basically, you're saying that any man that's ever been in any relationship ever. All right then.
Absolutely love that. Those men are crazy about that shit. They can't get enough of it.
As opposed to you, who's just crazy about shit in general.
And they love it every single time their girl, their woman does that for them. It's like the best thing ever.
Heaven forbid you have a consensual sexual relationship with another adult that doesn't involve shitting onto a plate.
For them. It is like one of the greatest experiences for guys who are like that to ever experience, go through, or whatever. And I just literally, honest to God, hate men who love that and who would ever want or expect or demand their girlfriend or wife to do that for them, because I would never do that. And I'm not into that shit because I'm into fetishes that are so much more real, based, and deep.
Your idea of a fetish is someone takes a giant shit on a plate and then you rub it on yourself. That's not deep unless you refer to someone's colon depth. I mean, here's the thing. If you want one of those, I guess you can say one of those kinks or fetishes that might be deep, if you think about it emotionally or mentally, it'd be the kind of people that like the boyfriend or girlfriend experience. I mean, at least, even if it's a fabricated scenario, it'd be a lot more deep than shitting or pissing and farting. Because the boyfriend or girlfriend scenario is basically like someone actually wants to have this hyper-romanticized relationship with someone, but they just don't have it with that particular person. That's a lot more deep than, well, you shat onto my plate. Seriously, I don't get why it is you keep acting like you are some sort of genius when you act the way that you do about the shit that you act. I don't get it, ladies and gentlemen, I don't get it. Like, maybe I'm just a dumb fucking mongoloid, but I don't get it.
Than any of you cocksucking man whores in your just absolute
Not a cocksucking man whore, just someone that had relationships over the course of years. You seem to think that anyone that has any sort of relationship is a man whore.
obsession and addiction and fixation of oral and anal sex. It is annoying. And you know, one of the main reasons why I hate oral and anal sex so much is not just because I think it is disgusting.
You're allowed to think it's disgusting and not personally view it as your cup of tea, but why do you give two shits if someone else is doing it as long as they're both adults?
I think it is perverted, degenerate, immoral, wrong, and pure.
You literally get off to shit and piss. It's a lot more perverse and degenerate than people simply sucking a dick.
Evil.
Evil? Because I don't understand it. It's evil. Because my brain is literally so fucking rotted at its core at this point that I think anything I don't understand is evil.
But the reason why I also hate it is because of the fact that it is so annoyingly overrated. And just...
You can't say something is overrated if you've never personally experienced it. It's like being at a movie you've never fucking seen before and saying the movie sucks because other people enjoy it. You're basically the equivalent of the guy that sees that someone enjoys anything and you need to find a way to like shit all over their parade, even though no one in the room asked for your opinion or gave a shit about your input.
By seeing the percentage of women anywhere in the world per like each country or continent or whatever who suck dick or take dick up the ass or both just goes to show me how overrated and how popular oral and anal sex is. And
have you ever thought that maybe these things are popular is because people try these things, they find out that it's genuinely enjoyable and that's why they do it? As opposed to the shit you talk about where it's always very niche communities of people that are into it because a lot of these people are genuinely unwell.
And, you know, when it comes to oral and anal sex, that shit is so very promoted, like so hardly in the mainstream media, such as Hollywood, for example, in many movies, in many shows, songs even, like rap songs or whatever, like one of the most things rappers rap about is oral and anal sex. And that is one thing that I always hate rappers or rap music for. Like, that is the only thing that they rap about. Well, I wouldn't say the only thing that they rap about that I can't relate to, but it is one of the main things that not only I cannot relate to because I don't agree with it, I don't support it, I don't approve of it or condone it, I hate it. I hate the fucking shit out of it, but also I can't relate to it either because I am not one of the many douchebag, faggot, normie guys out there in the world who...
You're the biggest faggot in the room because you're constantly whinging and bitching about fucking nothing and then trying to make it everyone else's problem that you experience something you don't like.
Wants to get my dick sucked or wants to stick my dick up a girl's ass. I don't want to do either of those things.
Don't knock it till you try it, within reason.
And I love the fact that I'm different compared to most other men.
Is that why you bitch about it all the time and you complain about being mocked and ridiculed for being different, but then you like it because apparently you think that pretending to be a face of a counterculture is the same thing as actually being a counterculture?
I love the fact that I am set apart, that I am unique.
Everyone's technically unique, and you're not set apart because you are intelligent, interesting, or charismatic, and you stick out as a fucking voice of a generation. You stick out because you decided to basically jam yourself halfway into the fence post instead of going all the way down like the nail should. So instead you complain and bitch about not being all the way down, while the other people are like, well, we're content in our little niche of life, whereas you decide to bitch about it and make it a problem for other people to have to listen to. Like, you complain about being different, but then you're happy. Which one is it?
In that regard, in that way. Because there are already more than enough men who are into that shit. In fact, there are way too many men who are into those things, which is annoying and retarded and stupid and ridiculous and dumb.
Literally everything you say is ridiculous, and you're actually massively retarded yourself.
And it is by far one of the most things in this world that triggers the living shit out of me and makes my blood boil, raises my blood pressure, stresses me out, makes me angry, makes me enraged, makes me so full of hatred and fury and frustration.
And I keep involving myself in pop culture and social media when I know the world is essentially fucking flooded with this, because apparently I'm not smart enough to just stop engaging with this social media culture we're living in.
Like, more than any of you will ever understand. And, you know, I honestly just cannot believe that other men could date women who have been, like, ran through by other men, but also who have sucked the dicks of other men.
Again, do you expect a ghost dick to be in the back of her mouth if you kiss? It's just gonna fly down your throat like fucking slugs from Slither or from Night of the fucking Creeps.
And have taken the dicks of other men up their ass, when it's like, when you,
Ghosts of the dicks.
as a man, goes to kiss a woman like that on the lips.
What is this? Ghost of Fellatio's past?
You're practically, technically, pretty much kissing another man's dick.
No, you're not. No, you're not. So you genuinely seem to believe that if you kiss a woman that's ever been involved with a dude before, then his dick is just gonna be in her throat instead of her tongue. Okay. I'm glad you more or less just explained yourself in a way that only makes you seem more paranoid and out of your fucking mind.
Which is gay. That is gay as fuck.
Not as gay as constantly complaining about your problems and then whining about them and then saying that other people are dickheads for pointing out the fact that your problems are your responsibility when they are entirely in your hands.
Fuck. Like, I don't care what anyone says about that matter, because if you're a man and you're willing to date, marry, or accept or settle for a woman who's sucked dick or taken dick up the ass, and you kiss a woman like that on the mouth, on the lips, again, you're practically kissing another man's dick.
No, you're not, because if it's been years and years and years and years, or even, like, imagine, for example, someone's not been in a relationship with a man for years after they're no longer in a relationship, and they meet someone, they get married. The guy's dick is not gonna, like, turn into a phantom cock and then appear in her mouth randomly whenever you guys decide to try to be intimate. Like, dwelling on shit like that is not good for your mental health, because it means every time you have a relationship, it's gonna be based solely upon the fear of who this person's fucked in the past. Seriously, what the hell is the point of having a mindset like that if all it's gonna do is fucking depress you? Why?
And also tasting another man's dick, because no matter
How
how
would you know what another man's dick tastes like is the question I want to ask here. How would you know? How would you genuinely know? I can't say I know from experience. Do you know, Isaac? Do you know? This is fucking strange, okay?
how many times that woman brushes her teeth or uses mouthwash or whatever.
Yeah, the skin cells of his dick will still be there aeons after you're both dead.
She's always going to have some DNA remaining of those men's dicks that she sucked.
Are you seriously acting like those skin cells just have, like, eternal life and they won't just eventually decay and vanish from existence?
And all the dicks from all these different man-whores and players and chads or whatever that she's...
Do you seriously think every woman gets ran through by, like, 30 different guys in their lifetime? Are you that fucking retarded?
taking up the ass?
Because every woman is a porn star, according to you.
Which is just so unbelievable and just stunning. I just can't believe it. And the thing about women's breath also who suck dick a lot, even if they brush their teeth and even for a long time and even use mouthwash, their breath stinks.
Is this because you found out that your sister was an OnlyFans model and you tried to play tonsil hockey with her and then you realized that her breath smelled completely like shit? And that's why you think it is, that it has to do with dick and it might not just be with her oral hygiene, or maybe she just has genuinely bad halitosis?
And you may ask yourself, well, how do I know that? Well, because I have a couple sisters who've done that.
So yeah, like you tried to play tonsil hockey with your sisters, they reject you because you say, ew, it doesn't matter what Pornhub says, you can't do this. And then you freak out and scream and run into your little coom cave to jerk off feverishly to the thought of fucking them when they were teenagers. Because that's genuinely the fucking mindset you admit to having. You admit to being a fucking hebephile. And for some reason you're trying to act like the things you say don't somehow put together a very unsettling puzzle when the pieces start falling into place. Again, you're more or less confirming that a lot of your bullshit when it comes to you having issues with women, a lot of it stems from the fact you have problems with your sisters.
That's why. Or that's how I know that. Because only 2 of my sisters have done that. One of my older sisters and one of my younger sisters. But thankfully, not all of them. And
he still has a chance within the family tree, guys. You heard it. He still has a shot with someone in the family tree that's not his mother. I'm kidding, but would you really be surprised if he just went the full-on Chris Chan route when his father passes away?
These 2 sisters of mine, I completely disown. I do not have any...
Why? Why disown them for something as pedestrian as that? That's like saying that someone does something that's like that would be like what would happen if you see someone pick up a piece of food off the ground. It's been there for less than 5 seconds. The whole 5-second rule thing, and then you just decide to disown them for that too. Because every time you think about them now, you're thinking about them eating food off the ground. That's the same principle you're applying here.
Anything in common with, I don't relate to, I don't love, care about, respect them. I don't appreciate or value or cherish them one damn bit.
So you hate 2 of your sisters for no reason at all, except for the fact they had sexual partners. This is why you'd be the worst brother in the world, because you just talk shit to your siblings instead of trying to be the person that may offer sage advice. You just end up coming off as the asshole that hates members of his family for really nothing.
In fact, they have broken my heart. They have devastated me. They have crushed me.
They rejected you.
That they chose that kind of lifestyle a very long time ago.
Who gives a shit what lifestyle they chose as long as they're not raping and murdering children, for example? Who gives a fuck?
Both of them. And that they literally just chose to become just like any other woman in this world in modern times.
So they chose to live their own lives and not be a fucking drone that you've decided they should live like. When you have literally no authority over them in any way.
Like, they didn't at all try to be different or set apart or unique or whatever. They didn't try to be better or anything. They just became like every other fucking woman. And I can't respect them. I can't respect any woman like that. No matter who they are. I can't love them. I can't care about them or respect them or appreciate them or value them or cherish them. And I would never want to protect women like that. I would never defend them, no matter what.
So basically, if you saw your sisters being murdered in an alleyway, and they're saying, "Help! Isaac, help! He's got a fucking knife!" Sorry, you were sucking dick and taking dick up the ass, sis. You should have known death was your only fucking escape from this. Have a nice death as you walk out of the alleyway and someone shivs your poor sister. Like, is that the way you'd handle something like that? As if someone that you should be willing to die to protect is being fucking murdered, for example, because you've decided that you don't care how they go through life because they did things that you mildly disagree with? Again, you were like the worst brother in the world.
And I would never fight for women like that. I would never join a war or join a cause or.
You strike me as the kind of guy that would just go full Gomer Pyle on anyone the moment people told you to fucking pay attention, because we had to make sure that the drills are done properly so we don't misfire our weapons and kill ourselves by accidents.
Or defend a country full of women like that. Absolutely not. No fucking way in hell. And there's way too many women like that in this world. Way too many of them. And you know, like, back to what I was talking about earlier, like how I know women who suck dick, their breath stinks no matter how many times they brush their teeth or use mouthwash. Because I was saying that a couple of my sisters do that or did that, and they still do it, of course. But like, even if they brush their teeth, you know, their breath reeks, and it's only because I get close enough to them. Like, oh, if I'm in the same car with them, or
no, I think what happens is whenever they're visiting the household during the holidays, if everyone just kind of stays over because they are not in the condition to drive because your family might imbibe in alcohol during the holidays, I think what happens is you just sneak into the room and smell their breath while they sleep, hoping they'll smell shit on their breath. That's a joke, but you gotta wonder.
I'm in the same room with them, or I'm near them enough to get
in the same room with them, you shouldn't be able to smell their breath that easy unless they've been smoking a lot of fucking weed or fucking cigarettes, or if they've been drinking heavily.
Whiff of their breath, and I'm just like disgusted. I'm just like blown away with how nasty their breath smells. Like, it literally smells like something rotting, something died inside of them. And in a way, something did die inside them. Their soul died. Their heart is black, if anything.
Their heart's black because they have sex and they do things I don't like, and they're not human anymore. They're demons. Oh, fucking kill yourself. Like, do you know what my parents would say if they call me talking about my siblings in such a way? They tell me to shut the fuck up. That's what they tell me. And they tell me to do it, not because it's some bullshit defend the girl from criticism shit. It's like, that is your fucking sister. You might not agree with her fucking beliefs. You might not understand a lot of the things that she's decided to do with her life. But unless she's doing something that you can actually prove is damaging her life, like if she's doing hard drugs and shit, then leave her the fuck alone. Like, that would be the fucking exchange that we would have. And they'd be well within their rights to tell me to shut the fuck up at that point, because I'd basically just be bitching about nothing. Same thing here.
They're dead inside. Women like that have no soul, nor do they have a heart. And if they do, all they have is a weakened, broken soul that is blackened, and same with a broken, dead, blackened heart. So I would never, ever want a woman who's ever done either one of those things or both. And it really makes me hopeless and full of despair when I see pretty much women all over the world do that shit, and they love it. They crave that stuff. They want to do that stuff, even without being told, without being asked, without being expected, without being pressured to do that. They just do it spontaneously.
You shouldn't pressure to do something like that anyway, because that's basically just you being a fucking rapey douche who's trying to use coercion to get what he wants. That's the definition of a piece of shit thing to do.
Just out of nowhere. It is so messed up.
Studies found out that most men like women who initiate, because the women who initiate, it makes the men feel sexually desirable, which means they feel more willing and more apt to do the job. I mean, let's be honest. Men in general, we do appreciate it when a woman initiates, and the reason we appreciate it is because we like to feel desirable too. It's not all strictly the woman wants to feel desirable. Sometimes the man genuinely wants to know that his wife or girlfriend still finds him attractive, like when they first started dating. It basically acts as reassurance that the man is still desirable to her as well as it just being a nice change of pace. But why would you want to know what you're talking about if you could just bullshit yourself into believing so? Why would you want to make fucking sense?
It's so, so very sad and heartbreaking because these women they'll never be whole ever again. They'll never become healed or fixed or whatever. They're ruined for life. They ruined themselves. They ruined their bodies. They destroyed their dignity, their morality, their modesty, just all of it. Just all gone down the drain, just discarded, thrown away, thrown down the sewer. And yeah, it does make me feel bad and sad for them, but at the same time, I hate them. I really do.
Get the fuck over yourself, you fucking cunt. I hate them because they do things I don't like. Even though the things that they're doing are not illegal or really dangerous to anyone except maybe themselves. But I need to constantly bitch about it so I feel like I have a fucking reason to exist. Seriously, people like you are a fucking headache for anyone in the world to deal with because it's always the same crybaby shit. Like it is. Without exception. Basically like, oh look, I'm a victim, society's out to get me, I'm not getting what I want from the world's mean, fuck off. Fuck right the fuck off. Seriously, do you think you come off as intelligent or sophisticated or witty when you act like this big of a dick? No, you come off like a whiny prick. You just come off like a whiny dick who's trying way too hard to act like he knows what he's talking about when he really knows way too little about everything. And then at the same time, you want to yammer on about things like you think you're some sort of philosophical genius that's figured out the world. You can't even figure yourself out. I mean, you wouldn't know the difference between reality and a can of paint. Because you're just in love with the idea of being a victim. And then at the same time you want to antagonize, belittle, and fucking shit all over people because they point out the fact that a lot of your ideas are dumb as hell. And no, this isn't some bullshit where it's like, well, you're just being a simp, you're just being a simp, you're just telling women what they want to hear. No, it's just the fact is, if you act shitty, and you act like a whiny little fucking pissant to everyone about fucking nothing, you come off like a whiny ass, and then people just don't want to associate with you on any level. Because all it does is just creates this fucking image of yourself that shows you as a mentally unstable fucking wacko. Alright, here we are again.
Do. And I can't pretend or act like I don't. Anyways, on to the third thing that I would expect and want in my ideal dream woman.
Would this third thing also be like almost an hour long?
Which is, I would expect and want her to be a loner, like me.
So you want a girl with no friends, with no social interactions, with no social abilities. That way this person is entirely isolated from people that they could trust and reach out to if things aren't going well. That doesn't sound great. Not at all. Especially when you demonstrate the proclivities that you have.
I would want her to be a homebody, someone who, pretty much like me, spends all the time at home, pretty much rotting in her parents' home, regardless if it's the basement or anywhere else in her parents' house. And I want her to be like just as much of a loser as I am, just as broken, just as depressed, just as hopeless and full of despair and nihilistic and all that as I am.
So you want someone that'll be just as miserable, angry, and hateful as you are. Yeah, that's not a recipe for a fucking relationship that's gonna be based solely upon resentment towards each other at a certain point. I mean, you know what happens when people have difficulties in their own lives? It creates difficulties in relationships as well, because all that stress they would normally have on themselves, they now subconsciously see this other person as a means to vent that stress. And usually it just results in conflict being a major issue in the relationship, and it makes it hard for both of you to get along with each other because it just turns into this constant thing where you feel like you need to bicker and bitch to each other about everything, even though neither one of you wants to hear what the other person's going through, because you've both decided that your own personal issues and inadequacies are the main focus of your day. Now, people know that I have a lot of different friends from a lot of different backgrounds. I've been open about how a lot of my friends have been, like, a lot of them are pretty lucky and some of them not. Like, I had a friend in high school. His name was, let's see, his name was Tom. I'm going to call him Tom because I don't want to use his real name. But the fact is, Tom had a relationship with a girl, and they both fucking hated everything and everyone for no real reason. It's like they both existed to be cynical assholes. Keep in mind, they both came from good families who cared about them very much. They were actually pretty well taken care of, all things considered. They were given nothing but support and encouragement to do their own thing as long as they graduated school and tried to figure out what they would do in life. They were actually greatly encouraged to do whatever they thought they could do to get by in life within reason. But the fact is, for whatever reason, they both just hated everyone and everything around them. And the problem is their relationship quickly turned into a fucking shitstorm. Because instead of trying to help the other person see the best in the world by showing them the better side of themselves, they ended up burning each other out psychologically within the course of like a couple of months they were dating. And this wasn't like regular high school short and sweet relationships. No, this is like these two fucking hated each other within the first couple of months. Because every time one would like something, the other person would need to bring up something shitty about it they didn't personally like. Instead of just simply saying, you like your things, I like my things, but that's okay, we can learn to appreciate them together. Instead, it turned into this person just being a giant fucking shit. And it just turns into a fucking nightmare. And it turns into one of those damn things where everyone is arguing non-fucking stop because they can't get along with anything. It's like two dysfunctional assholes that shouldn't be together. They had kids anyway. Hell, my own parents were an excellent example of that. There were two dysfunctional people that didn't handle the baggage in their own lives prior to having children. Marsh, you're basically asking for a family that's kind of like how my parents were, where they were not right for each other, but chose to stick together because they had kids together at that point. And you're trying to suggest this is like the ideal person for you, is someone that's isolated from everything and everyone, who also hates everything and everyone, and then for some reason accepts you with all your weird fetishes, proclivities, and interests. You're literally asking for a unicorn made of rainbow light, and then you're also asking that unicorn made of rainbow light happens to be a human woman who's a virgin and into you. So you're basically asking for like beyond the negative of a 1% at this point.
I mean, I would prefer that. Although, if she's not, I wouldn't mind that though, because, you know, I would actually like a woman who's better than me, at least in some ways, because then, of course, and obviously, you know, maybe, just maybe, she would take it upon herself to fix me, to heal me.
So basically, it's not your job to go to therapy. Adjust my volume. Like, it's not.
To make me whole, to make me new.
So it's basically like it's not your job to go to therapy and try to sort out your problems and talk to a counselor about maybe finding some exercises and I guess you could say techniques to help calm yourself down so that you can work better with others. Instead, it's like, well, this person needs to fix me. This person needs to repair me. Let me just tell you a story, dipshit. Well, not a story. I'm just going to tell you what people have seen from all these relationships where the lady's like, oh, I can fix him. I can fix him. You can't fix him. And the reason you can't fix him is because he turned into this because of the fact that someone has tried to fix him. Odds are the person was better off initially, and then trying to fix them stressed them out more, and then made them an even bigger asshole because they feel like they're being pressured to succeed or fit into a mold that's been assigned to them. Can't say the same thing would really happen for Marsh, because for him to get worse would imply that there's something worse than this, aside from being the shooter kind. But the fact is, this particular state of mind, state of being, is not really very good, because you're more or less just lumping all the responsibilities onto this other person when it comes down to them trying to deal with you. And you're trying to act like this is a completely reasonable state of mind to be in, where it's like, well, I don't care what's wrong with me, everyone else should just fucking fix me. No one's gonna fix you. No one's gonna want to fix you, because it turns into one of those really shitty fucking things that people don't want to fucking deal with, and they're more or less kind of leveraged into it by emotional or psychological manipulation.
That would be a dream come true, but it's also something that is too good to be true. Like, it's something that doesn't exist. It's like a fantasy thing that I really want and crave like crazy. And I wish there were women who were literally like angels in the regard where they wanted to take it upon themselves, even at least to try to fix and heal all these broken, damaged, crushed, severely, extremely lonely, isolated, alienated, antisocial, introverted, shy, uncomfortable, nervous, stressed out, and intimidated by beautiful women, men in this world, which there are many of in modern times. There's a lot of them. There's a high percentage of them, pretty much no matter where you go in the world. And I mean, obviously, I guess some countries probably have a higher percentage of men like that than others. But I just wish there were women who wanted to heal us and fix us. And it's funny, too, because even Hollywood itself kind of promotes that sort of idea or concept or fantasy, if you will. I mean, there are many movies where there's like a lonely guy character, but then there's a woman who comes along in the movie, and it's always a beautiful one, of course. Looks like a literal angel. And she's every man's pretty much dream girl. Well, lonely men's especially, that just doesn't just look like an angel, but sounds like one, who's sweet, soft-spoken, kind, caring, loving, compassionate, sympathetic, empathetic, who cries for her man, like who comforts him, who coddles him as if he's like a baby, who just holds.
There are a lot of women who will be sympathetic to their husband or boyfriend when they're going through a genuinely horrific moment in their life, whether it be through like a really horrible loss or a really devastating emotional issue. There are a lot of people who may do that. But you shouldn't want to be coddled as though you're a fucking baby. Because if you want to be coddled as if you're a fucking baby, do you want to know what happens? What happens is you lose your agency as a person and you're no longer a man to her. You're just a child that wants to be the man to her. And that's basically how you're perceived as when you behave that way. you're not seen as someone who wants to be observed as their man. You're seen as someone who wants to be seen as their child, who they themselves are also sleeping with. And for some reason, you don't think it's a really weird fucking dynamic to want someone to fill that fucking dynamic for you. Let's face it, you basically want a mother figure that will fuck you. And that also suits all these other weird fucking fetishes and interests you have.
Holds him and hugs him and squeezes him until his suffering is gone, and maybe she becomes sad herself or feels somewhat empty because she's trying to heal him and fix him. And in some movies, there are women who take it upon themselves to do that. And I wish there were women like that in real life, but there isn't. There aren't. Unfortunately. At least, not that I know of. I've never met or known of any women like that in real life, in reality, outside of movies and shows. But, I would want and expect my ideal dream woman to be someone who doesn't really go out. Like, if she does go out into the world, maybe she has a job. And she pretty much just goes to her job and home, and that's about it. And maybe on her days off goes to the grocery store to buy groceries. But just pretty much limits her life to that. Like, I wouldn't want a girl who loves to go out and go places and do things and travel, especially travel the world, which I myself have never done.
Well, it's obvious you've never traveled the world because no one has the funds to really travel the world. You could travel from maybe one state to another for a trip. Or if you have some money put away, you might be able to go overseas for a week or two. But no one has the money to travel the world unless they're making 7 to 8 figures a year. Mainly because of the fact that most people just don't have the money. Another thing, you're allowed to have these preferences, but the more you go into detail, the less and less likely it is you'll find someone that will satisfy these particular criteria. Like, you're making it harder and harder for me to even give you a hypothetical, dude.
I never had the chance or opportunity or privilege or advantage of being able to do something that fun or exciting in my life as much.
Is everything you do based upon... It's not really a privilege if someone saves up their own money and goes because they have a job. For example, in 2 years from now, I want to be able to finally go to G-Fest. I keep wanting to go, but I keep forgetting what time of year it is, which means I never put the PTO request in. I never make sure my vehicle is completely roadworthy for a trip that goes all the way down to fucking Chicago. Not to mention the fact that I particularly don't like traveling to Chicago because even though I know it's not a horrible city, there are definitely some neighborhoods I would like to avoid. Because there are some places that people obviously don't know me, and if they don't know you, they might not want you there. And they might react violently to you being there. And I'm not trying to sound ignorant, I'm just trying to be pragmatic about this. I just don't want to be in a place where I feel like I would not be welcome, and where my presence there might be with violence. But the fact is, I actually take the time to put the money aside to go out and plan these particular trips. It's not a privilege if someone's just actively making the proper decisions to plan trips. It's your fault for not choosing to do anything with your life.
As I wish I could, and especially in a time in my life when I actually used to be happy, hopeful, and optimistic. I never got to do really anything that fun, exciting, or adventurous like traveling the world. I would have loved to back then, but I didn't.
People don't travel the world, as I've said before.
Get to. And because of how much suffering I went through, I don't care to do that shit. So I personally, myself, wouldn't want a woman who has done that. Or who likes to do that, who enjoys to do that. I would also want and expect my ideal dream woman to be someone who did not grow up in a big city or doesn't like going to them, hates them, if anything, just as much as I do, and doesn't ever go to clubs and, party or whatever. Like, doesn't do any of that shit at all whatsoever. Like, ultimately, I would want and expect a woman to be as much like me as fucking possible. Like, pretty much the female version of me.
Only angrier.
That is what I would want and expect out of my ideal dream woman. And if I can never find a woman like that, then obviously I'm meant to die alone. Ultimately, I'm meant to be a sad, lonely, miserable piece of shit for the rest of my life.
You wouldn't be sad and lonely if you'd stop trying to blame everyone else for your fucking problems, dude. Seriously. You wouldn't need to put yourself in this situation all the time if it wasn't for the fact that you just don't know when to look at yourself and think, what am I doing to my life right now? Seriously. You cannot go up to people and say, it's everyone else's fault, I fucked my life up. You can't. And the reason I'm saying you fucking can't is because when you do shit like that, all it does is make it easier for people to look at you and say, yeah, you're completely fucked. And then they just choose to stay the fuck away from you. I wish you'd just stop trying to act like it's unreasonable that people look at you and question your fucking sanity. It's not unreasonable for people to wonder what the hell your deal is.
Hopeless, full of despair, brokenhearted, shattered, crushed, damaged beyond repair.
Name like 12 things that also mean crushed.
And just nothing but darkness in my life for the rest of my life, or for however long I live. Because obviously, the kind and type of girl that I would want, like I said at the very beginning of this video, doesn't exist. She's make-believe. She's pure fantasy. Because every woman I've ever known in my life is all about big cities, all about clubs and partying and going places and doing things and just serving her.
How many women do you actually know? How many women do you actually know in real life, dude? I mean, how many do you actually socialize with on the daily? I guarantee it's not many. And that's not being used as a put down way, that's being used as a look at what I'm seeing here and the information that's like readily available to me. It doesn't seem like there are all that many in terms of the women that you like actively associate with. Like, this isn't me just trying to break your balls into a million fucking pieces. This is me just looking at it from all available information that's currently floating around. It doesn't seem like you really have a lot to do with women in general, so it's really hard to take you seriously about your ideas about women or the women that you associate with.
Self, being completely selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, self-righteous, prideful, huge inflated ego.
You're self-righteous too, because you act like your fucking ass hurt and indignation must be met with immediate understanding. I mean, seriously. You act like your behavior and your bullshit indignance about nothing is deserved. You're doing the same thing you accuse these people of doing by being self-righteous, except you're self-righteous for a reason that makes no sense at all. I mean, neither one of you have a particularly good reason to be self-righteous, but at least with them you could argue that it's just ignorance. With you, people can argue that it's literally just pride. And it's pride in something that even you admit that you fucking hate. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid.
Traveling the world, just buying whatever for herself and not having to work a real job a day in her life.
What do you know about working a job, dipshit? You quit your job. Now, I would understand that complaint if it was someone who actually was still working making that complaint against people who'd never worked, but you yourself quit your job because it frustrated you. You can't really blame people for not working or because they married someone who is wealthy if you yourself also decided not to work a real job. It comes off as oddly hypocritical.
And just being able to depend on all these simps who just give women money that they want, that they like, hand over fist, without any questions asked. Like, men are just so pathetic.
Well, you're even more pathetic than the simps, to tell you the truth, because the simps don't freak out and cry whenever they don't get what they want. At least most don't.
If anything, I would prefer to be with a woman who lives in a rural area, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. If she has a car, fine. I don't care. So be it. Like, if she wants to go to like a small town nearby where she lives every now and then, every once in a while, be my guest. I don't care. But if she loves going to cities and if she enjoys them, especially the big ones, and just is so full of herself, so self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, prideful, self-righteous, and huge inflated ego, and just serving herself with all this fun, excitement, and adventure and pleasure, then she's trash. And I wouldn't want anything to do with any women like that, regardless of where they're from in the world. I wouldn't want anything to do with women like that. Any of them. In fact, I hate women like that. Any and all women like that. They're my enemies.
Why are they your enemies? The ones that are doing shit to you.
It's just the way it is for me. Let's see. Okay, so that was the third thing. The fourth thing that I would want and expect out of my ideal dream girl or woman or whatever is that I would want her to be poor, like me. I would prefer that. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting with a rich girl if there were a rich girl who was like a literal saint. And
it's not that a rich girl couldn't date and marry a man from a lower social status. It's more like, what would a man have to offer a woman who can have everything if the man is also a major asshole who hates everyone and everything? I mean, if a man is charming, kind, and a genuine sweet man with good intentions, a woman might fall for him just in the general principle that he's a good man. But if the person in question is just a bitter, angry cocksucker that has, like, nothing but hate for everyone around him, only because they're around him, then yeah, it's gonna create a lot of hostility and a lot of tension in the household for no real reason other than the fact that this shit happens. It's gonna be one of those things where tension is gonna be in the household all because of the fact that the people in the household can't see eye to eye or get along with each other because they're too busy fighting about nothing every other day. And it's just going to be one of those things that the household would essentially have to deal with that would kind of tear the household apart after a while. Because it would just be one of those things where tensions would just eventually come to a fucking head. And at that point, it would basically just spell game over for anyone involved. Because it would just be a genuinely unpleasant experience for everyone in the household.
And, took me under her roof and, maybe bought me things and shared her money with me. But there is no such woman like that. They don't exist. And this leads me to a famous quote that I really love on the internet, which says that a rich man could take a broke woman and change her life and make her life become like heaven on earth, paradise, dream come true. But a rich woman would not look a broke man's way. That is both depressing but also true. And you know what? Maybe there are some women like that in the world. I'm not saying that there are none at all, but I've never heard of or met of any women like that who are rich and who are just loaded with cash, who would, pretty much provide for herself and her husband so that her husband would not even need to work a bitch ass shitty 9 to 5 job, and then he could actually be at home, help around with shit, and help raise the kids. That would be the perfect kind of life. For a man to meet or get with a rich woman and neither of them have to work, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. It'd be a dream come true. It'd be thrilling. I would be totally on board with that, 110%. I would, if I were to find a woman like that, I would want a woman like that, but I've never been lucky enough of finding a woman like that. And I know for a fact that most women who are rich, like all these social media women and all these famous YouTube women, they're completely self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, prideful, self-righteous, huge inflated egos.
Must we go through 45 fucking adjectives? Just say that most women that are wealthy, that are well known in social media, prefer not to engage in conversation or dialogue or even associate with broke men. Just say that. Just say that. We don't need to hear a 10-paragraph long fucking dissertation that all involves descriptions that are all apt under the same singular fucking word. Seriously, hearing you make these fucking videos where you yammer on about nothing for 20 minutes makes me want to shoot myself in the fucking brain. And it's all the same shit. It's always the same whiny BS. You contribute nothing by talking about even less.
They think so highly of themselves.
Most people do.
They're completely selfish and greedy, and they don't care about anyone but themselves. They're heartless, cruel, and abusive, and they're not wife material or mom material. I would not want my kids to have a mother like that. That would be complete torture for my poor kids if I were lucky enough of having any, which I probably never will if I'm just being real with all of you and honest. But if I were to have kids, the last thing I would ever want would be a woman like that to be the mother of my kids. But you know what? I wish that there were rich women, even if they were like rich women on social media or whatever, who aren't all high and mighty, self-righteous, prideful, self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, and selfish and greedy. But they're pretty much all like that. And I can't entirely blame them for being that way, since it's ultimately the simp's fault, simp men's fault, who have worshipped these types of women for so long, for decades now, and puffed them up, flattered them like crazy for decades, have put them up on a pedestal, have given them money for just being pretty and just existing, which is absolutely ridiculous and unfair. And then these women never have to work a real job a day in their life. They don't know what it's like to suffer, because they don't suffer. They always had it easy. They always had a silver spoon in their mouth, or should I say a gold spoon? Hell, maybe even a diamond one for that matter. It's just so insane. It's unfair, but it is, I would say, one of the many unfair privileges and advantages that any and all beautiful women have compared to men. They can just easily hop on social media and become rich. And there's a shit ton of them too. And they don't have to work a real job. They don't have to work a job that they hate. That makes them miserable. That makes them depressed. That breaks their heart. They don't have to slave away and be a wage cuck.
You act like every single woman alive that happens to be attractive on social media just has the world at their feet. Now, there is something to be said that there are women who are definitely more fortunate than others when it comes down to their appearance, being able to essentially determine how their life might turn out in many different ways. There is something to be said about that being true to a margin of women. But that does not mean everyone that happens to be a lady and happens to be attractive will automatically fit that kind. In fact, more often than not, it's very difficult to narrow down what decides that because there are so many variables and factors to consider. But you're just not doing that.
So many other people have to be, mostly men, that is. And I can't blame all the millions of men in America who don't want to work anymore. I really can't blame them one bit, because I don't even really want to work. But I'm doing work, and I'm doing the best that I possibly can at the job that I currently recently have, and I'm going to try to...
Okay, so you're currently employed now. Alright. I'll give you that, you're currently employed. But seriously, given the fact that you quit your last job for reasons like, well, I don't want to come in all the time, that seems like a pretty sad reason to quit a job. Unless they're giving you, like, legitimately no fucking pay and shit hours.
Stay with this job for as long as I possibly can, because there's shit that I want to buy, and obviously nobody's going to buy it for me. I had to learn that the long, hard way.
I had to bitch about not getting a $10,000 gaming rig on the internet for 4 years, because apparently that was a constructive waste of my fucking time. Seriously, if you saved like $100 every week, you could have got it within 2. Within 2 years, you could have got it.
But, you know, the crazy funny thing is, had I been born a beautiful woman, I would have taken the advantage of getting on social media, TikTok, Instagram, etc.
So you're admitting that these people are just using their own assets to get what works for them. But at the same time, you would do the same thing, but you bitch about it when other people make their own anatomy and biology work for them.
And, you know, flaunting my body all over the internet so I could get rich. I would literally have done that if I would have been born a beautiful woman. But I wasn't. I was born a man. And just by me being born a man, I suffered like hell. Most men, the vast majority of us men, our lives are a living hell. They're miserable as fuck. We're depressed. We barely want to be alive, but we keep living for our friends, our family, our parents. I don't know, like, it's not fun to be a man. Not one bit. It is hell on earth. But being born a woman, it's literally like the best thing ever. Because just by being a woman, women are so much more loved, cared about, respected, protected, cherished, nurtured, comforted, defended. They're more important than compared to men. They're puffed up, they're flattered, they're whatever, put it on a pedestal. They're made into social media influencers and e-thoughts and famous YouTubers and famous movie stars and famous models and entrepreneurs and singers, and like, they just have such a good life. They have good lives, I mean. They have great lives, if anything. It's unfair, but it's just the way things are, unfortunately. Anyways, on to the fifth thing. So the fifth thing that I would want and expect from my ideal dream woman would be for her to be beautiful, but also a kissless virgin who is modest, humble, meek.
I want someone who's just going to be a doll that I can play around with and dance around with, because apparently this person shouldn't have a personality. Like, heaven forbid they challenge my fucking will. Like, heaven forbid they be a person and not just do whatever I want.
Well reserved, dresses modestly, who has dignity, who has self-respect and honor for herself and for her body, and isn't all promiscuous, hypergamous, or provocative, who isn't full of herself, self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, prideful, self-righteous, and has a huge inflated ego. But I would still want ultimately a beautiful woman who is like that, who is a kissless virgin, who chose to be a virgin by choice. Because when it comes to women who are virgins, they're virgins by choice. Men,
not necessarily. There are some women who just genuinely have so much anxiety they can't get involved in relationships because like the thought of getting close to someone and getting rejected and causing them just the thought of being rejected by someone might cause a woman panic if there's someone that's prone to anxiety or has mental health issues associated with it. So again, blanket statements are blanket statements because they cover everything, but really mean shit if you look under them.
are virgins not by choice. For many of us men, for most of us, it is never our choice or decision to be virgins. But when women are virgins, they are virgins because they chose to be, because there are so many men who want them, who lust after them, who crave them, who desire them, who wish to be with them. But like I would want a beautiful woman who is a virgin, who has never had a boyfriend, never even been kissed, never even held hands with a guy, never even been friends with a guy, because, you know, when it comes to me personally, I've never even had friends who were girls growing up. Not when I was a little boy in elementary school or middle school or a teenager in high school. I didn't have like a single woman friend in either elementary school, middle school, or high school. And I would have been happy even just having a friend who's a woman, especially if they were, or if she was attractive. But no, I didn't even have that. And, you know, if pretty girls would have made friends with me, it would have made me more comfortable around them over time. It would have made me warm up to them. It would have made me eventually able to talk to them and interact with them socially and physically. But because women never did that when I was growing up, when I was a lot younger, I was never able to develop social skills when it came to talking to beautiful women. And the only women that I am able to talk to, and even then, I don't even really talk to these women that much because I don't go out, I don't go places or do things because I'm not a fucking NPC normie like a bunch of you blue-pilled cucks out there in the world. I'm a black pillar. I'm hopeless, full of despair, and nihilism.
You're a whiny asshole that wants to act like bitching about everything is the same thing as having life all figured out. It's the exact opposite, actually. Like, someone that needs to constantly bitch about how sad they are is the person that's the most miserable and the least likable in the room. Because they've already decided that their life is a fucking shitstorm that everyone else should have to sit through. And then at the same time, you want to act like having these issues and having these difficulties in life is somehow supposed to be like a badge of honor to be worn and shown as though it actually achieves something in the long run. When it does no such thing. It's hard to really take the positions of someone like this seriously.
Realistic, brokenhearted, shattered, and crushed, damaged beyond repair, torn apart on the inside and internally. But if I do talk to women, I've only ever been able to talk to ugly ones or ones that I'm just not at all attracted to whatsoever. If I'm not attracted to a woman, then it makes it so much more easy to talk to them, even in just like a friendly, normal sort of way. obviously like treating them like they're a person and I'm a person, and like treating them like a human being, and just being like normal and acting like a human being, or as much of a human being as I possibly can be. But again, because I'm not attracted to them, or they're ugly or whatever, or just mid looking, then it's a lot easier to talk to them. And the thing about me, I don't hate ugly women or mid looking women. Like, when it comes to a lot of women, even the ugly mid looking ones, they hate men who are just as equally ugly or mid looking to them. Like, they hate their looks match. Mid looking women, they don't want to date or marry mid looking guys. Ugly women, they don't want to date or marry ugly guys. And obviously, and of course, hot women don't either. And us mid-looking guys and ugly-looking guys especially are treated like shit by women. Pretty much any and all of them. Treated like shit.
Speaking as a mid-looking man, I can disagree with that. Speaking as someone who is a man that might be considered mid, I heavily disagree. Like, it all depends on how you treat other people first, more often than not.
Shit by society, by culture, by our culture. We're abused, we're bullied, we're mocked and made fun of. We're invisible to women. Like, there literally was a study done, and I said it a lot earlier in this video. There was a study done that showed that 80% of men, a whopping 80% of men, are invisible to women. Like, they literally physically cannot see them. Their brain doesn't allow them to. Their biology doesn't allow them to see 80% of men. But women only find about 20 to 10% of men attractive. And as time goes on, more and more women are trying to pretty much all fight for the top 10% of men. Like, and when it comes to these, very small percentage of men who are man, horse, players, chads, whatever, who are tall, good looking, who have status, fancy cars, fancy homes, really nice paying job, etc. These men are very small in number, in percentage, like very tiny, micro, minuscule, portion of them. And women are all kind of fighting for these kind of men. So if men like that do date girls or do marry them, they will date like multiple women at the same time. Because women will be sharing a man like that. A lot of women will be, as a matter of fact. Or if a man marries, or a man like that marries a woman, he marries, more than one of them, because a lot of women want those, top 20 or 10% or whatever of men. And as time goes on, maybe they'll start fighting for only the top 5%, and then it will eventually go down to just like the top 1% of men. It's just really ridiculous. It's just unbelievable. It's shocking and mind-blowing. But yeah. Anyways, moving on to the sixth and final thing that I would want and expect in my ideal dream woman or dream girl, which is the fact that I would expect and want or expect her to, gladly and willingly perform all of my fantasies and pleasures for me, all my fetishes for me.
So again, it's more like you view this person as a doll that acts like a mommy that you also fuck. Why is every frame of this a thumbnail?
And again, this will be the last thing I talk about in this video, and then I will be done. I promise. When it comes to the fetishes I have, one thing about it that really breaks my heart and makes me sad and devastates me, honestly, like it really does crush me when thinking about the fetishes that I have, because people make fun of me and bully me, and
It's not really a bullying if people say, yeah, it's a little fucked up that you're into that shit. I mean, this isn't like some vanilla shit you could say. It's like, yeah, it's something that it's a little bit out. I mean, this isn't like fucking bondage, for example, where you could say, yeah, it's a little out there, not my thing, but it's not as crazy as other shit people are into. Like, you're going like 10 different shades of what the ever loving fuck is wrong with you kind of fucking directions.
treat me like shit. Treat me like
Well, the reason they're classified as disorders and not fetishes is because the disorder is usually correlated with an unhealthy or unnatural arousal to X, Y, and Z.
trash and really put me down and belittle me and degrade me
God, Uncle.
and like flat out persecute me, honestly,
Persecuted? I'm sorry, were you hauled into a prison cell for this?
because of having the weird, abnormal,
But you acknowledge they're disgusting and abnormal. That should be reason enough to say, wow, I need to stop doing this shit.
disgusting whatever fetishes that I do. But you know what's funny about that is the fact that I find oral and anal sex disgusting. Sadly, most guys don't.
Do you want everyone to be like you to the point to where they're just a bunch of seething, screaming dipshits who are all into shit, farts, and piss? I'd sooner put my gun in my mouth and give my star slim as a blowjob than live my entire life like that. I don't even want to live 5 minutes like that because it means all the things that I would usually enjoy, I would have to fucking throw away and get rid of because all the hobbies and interests I have would suddenly become too expensive for me because I would literally be whining about nothing all the time to the point to where I'd just be a whiny piss baby nanny goat about everything.
But then it's like when it comes to the fetishes I personally have, most guys find the fetishes I have disgusting.
Well, yeah, it's because those things are bodily functions that are just done to dispose of waste. That's not the same thing as actually having something pleasurable done to you or doing something pleasurable to both yourself and someone else in the process of the act.
Perverted, degenerate, whatever. But I equally, on the same level, find their fetishes of oral and anal sex disgusting, perverted, and degenerate.
I don't know why you find those things particularly degenerate, considering the fact that those things have more or less been considered standard fare since, what, like the 13th century? And you would consider the shit these things that you're into as not degenerate, despite the fact that these things were never viewed as an orientation or a fetish until creepy people were born, because we had a bunch of people born fucked up since the population boom. Like, a lot of the people that have this are openly discuss being disgusted by their own fetishes because they've been diagnosed with things like emetophilia, for example. People like that openly say they don't like what they have, and that's why most people decide to try to get therapy to find a way to make it manageable so that it doesn't impact their lives at all. Whereas you decide to dive headfirst right into it, like shamelessly.
So, in a sort of way, we're the same in that regard, that we both hate, condemn, bash, make fun of, and find each other's fetishes disgusting. But unfortunately, when it
You find other people's fetishes disgusting because you grew up in a fucking crazy, spooky woo Christian household isolated from society, like some crazy fucking David Koresh nude Davidian style household.
comes to me, I love fetishes that sadly most guys don't. Or at least if more guys do, then is made to, or is made obvious or whatever. Guys who have the fetishes that I do are, quiet about it. They're secretive. They're silent. They literally, sadly and unfortunately, remain in the dark.
Most people don't go around saying they're into really crazy, weird, fucked up shit because they know for a fact that if they do, it's going to make people arch their eyebrows and ask what the fuck is up with them. It's not because someone's brainwashed them into hating themselves, it's because people genuinely wonder if there's something deeply wrong with the person in question.
Because of the fetishes they have. Because not only do they not want to be judged or made fun of by other guys for having weird, disgusting, abnormal, not as popular, overrated fetishes as.
You think everything's overrated because you've personally decided that the things you don't like are overrated when you've never experienced them. It's one of the most ignorant things you can say is it's overrated, but you've never actually done it.
oral and anal sex, but also they don't want to be made fun of or judged or whatever by women that they like who are doing that stuff in like TikTok videos or whatever, or YouTube videos. And I find it just really shocking and mind-blowing that we live in such a twisted, upside-down world that literally persecutes men like me, for example, who have fetishes of hot women, not average or mid, but hot women, burping, farting, pooping, or peeing. But then when it comes to guys who have fetishes of oral and anal sex, guys who have those fetishes are respected, praised, put up on a pedestal.
I wouldn't really say respected, praised, or put up on a pedestal. I'd just say that people consider that to be a relatively mundane fare. Like, people consider those things to be mundane. They don't consider them to be things that a person deserves accolades for enjoying. They just view it as pedestrian stuff that people wouldn't really care about or get up in arms about because it's just regular stuff. That's why people don't give two damns.
And those fetishes are, in general, popularized, overrated as time.
Again, stop saying the word overrated about things you've never personally experienced. There's no point in saying something is overrated if you've never actually experienced it yourself. Because it just comes off as a sorry cope. That's what it does. It just comes off as a coping mechanism. For whenever you can't get something or whenever you feel like something is being denied you, you just say that it's overrated because it's the number one way to just say that it's not a big deal is just to cope your way out of it. By just saying that it must be overrated because other people enjoy it.
I went on, and just so very promoted in porn, in Hollywood movies and shows, in songs like rock songs or rap songs, especially most of all.
Well, do you want to know why? It's because a lot of those industries, they try to appeal to the most likely thing the demographic is into. That's kind of how it works. Even in those movies, it's acting as a sort of marketing for these particular things.
But then, when it comes to the fetishes I have, they're persecuted. They're looked down on. They're judged. They're ridiculed. I'm shamed for having the fetishes I do, even though I love them. I love the fetishes I do. I mean, I have. I'm sorry. I love the fetishes I have is what I meant to say. And I personally think, in my own opinion, that hot women burping, farting, pooping, and peeing is by far the sexiest things that any and all attractive, beautiful women could ever possibly do. And any beautiful women who do that stuff, even if they don't realize that those are fetishes or kinks or whatever, turn me on so much and make me so very hard and make me so in love with each and every single one of them.
You don't really understand what love even means, though, because you've never been in a long-term relationship. You've never actually developed a kind of relationship where you can actually truly understand what it means to be able to look at that person and say, no sacrifice is too great, no dedication of time is too long, no distance is too far. Unless you can say those things and mean it wholeheartedly, you don't love someone. You just have momentary infatuations that you decide are love. Because you have the mindset that a teenager has about relationships, because you haven't had time to really grow and learn during one.
Like, I often fantasize about, daydream about, or whatever, like pretty much marrying every single one of them, because I'm just like, there's so many beautiful ones that do that shit where I'm just like, man, I wish I could just have all of them. Just all for me, all for myself, nobody else. I mean, yeah, that's crazy, but like, that's how much
I'm glad you recognized that it was crazy, because I was about to call the FBI.
love.
It's like a Criminal Minds episode in the making here.
It when beautiful women burp, fart, poop, or pee. It's such a massive turn on for me. And it gets me hard or whatever. And I masturbate to that shit a lot. I have for years, ever since I was 14 years old in 2011. But unfortunately, you know, most guys think I'm a creep, a freak, pervert, a degenerate, a disgusting, vile, filthy piece of shit, that I'm weirdo, whatever they want to call me. Like, I just don't care anymore. But sad thing is, even women who do that stuff think of me as that. Obviously, there are some women who are like porn stars, like OnlyFans and whatnot, who do that shit. But and those are the only women who realize that it's a fetish or a kink. But when it comes to like women on like YouTube videos, or just who are, playing video games for a living, or who are doing videos like that on TikTok or whatever, those women do not realize how much of a fetish those things are for actually quite a bit of men out there in the world. And they don't realize how much of a kink it is for actually quite a bit of guys, more than people would like to realize. And you know what I think is also kind of funny when it comes to the fetishes that I have? Like, a lot of guys have commented on my videos in the past, and I actually agree with them when they say this. It makes me sad, but I do think they have a great point, and a true point, and one I 100% agree with. I've seen comments in the past on some of my older YouTube videos where guys will comment things like, the kind of girl that this guy wants, that he's talking about, would never, do something like that for him. They're pretty much saying like a girl who's a whore would, sure, or a porn star maybe, or whatever, but just an average, ordinary, everyday woman, she would never do that for me. But here's the thing. Obviously, I highly doubt religious Christian women would do that for me. I wish they would, but
the kind of Christian women that would do it for you would be the crazy senile ladies that are pretty much locked in psych wards because their minds are essentially gone, because they still believe in like 1935 level of medical treatment where they just throw you into a fucking booby hatch if you were autistic or something.
I know that they won't, if I'm just being honest here and honest with myself about the matter. But the thing is, even when it comes to a lot of these women who aren't Christian or religious or traditional or conservative, Republican or modest, humble, meek, or have dignity or anything, who make a lot of burping videos on YouTube or TikTok or other streaming websites that they play video games on to make money on and make a living off of, even these girls don't realize that every burp they're doing, every fart they're doing is turning on a lot of creepy guys in the comments, including...
Well, it's actually why they do it. They market themselves like this because it's essentially like a form of sex work where they're not really required to touch anyone and they're not really required to do anything except that. There was one girl who basically bottled her farts and would send it to people for money, but the problem is she did so much damage to her colon and her intestine at that point that she had to stop doing it entirely, and now she has to have like a special diet so that she doesn't blow her fucking intestines out. So needless to say, that's the dangers of it if you're not careful.
Myself, in turning us on and making us hard, and making us wet, and making us crazy about them, and making us want them even more, and just desire them and crave them and whatnot. But then when these women find out and realize, like, oh my God, these are fetishes, these are kinks, like, what the fuck? That's weird, that's nasty, that's whatever. But then it's like, oh, when they're doing oral and anal sex, they're just so on board with that and so crazy about that. And they're so glad and willing to do oral and anal sex, which personally I think is a double standard and hypocritical. Because if you're going to be a woman, especially a worldly woman who's so very promiscuous, provocative, hypergamous, which most women are all over the world, like, if you're not going to be all in, you just look like a flat-out hypocrite. Literally. You as a woman, or you as women who are like that, who fall under those labels of being worldly, hypergamous, promiscuous, provocative, whorish, slutty, whatever hoes, and you're willing to do two certain specific fetishes of oral and anal sex, and you're crazy about doing that. You're obsessed with it. You're addicted to it. You love it so much, and you're so willing to do it all the time, constantly. But then it's like when it comes to other fetishes, such as hot women burping, farting, pooping, or peeing, you're like, you think that's disgusting and weird and nasty and gross and perverted and degenerate and creepy and freaky or whatever. But yet you do oral and anal sex, which is also disgusting. That is also nasty and gross.
You're acting like someone taking a shit on the floor in front of people on a camera is somehow not disgusting. You're still worse off than everyone else in the room, dude.
Weird. At least to me it is anyways. And I'm sure some other guys out there in the world who are just too scared or whatever to admit that because they don't want to face the backlash that I have over the years of having this YouTube channel and being too controversial and being too open and honest as I've been for years because of just the fact that I'm an open book, at least when it comes to making videos. But I'm not even really this open and honest when I just go out in public, like randomly out of nowhere. I'm not just going to start rambling to people because when I go out in public, I'm very quiet, very shy, very timid guy. Like I keep a lot to myself every time I go out in public. I don't really say or do much or speak to anyone at all, like ever. Even when I have a job, I limit what I talk about. I don't talk about that much stuff, and I don't talk for that long either because I'm mainly working anyways, so being at the job only gives me so much time to talk about whatever I'm talking about anyways. But I just honestly feel like when it comes to women who suck dick and take dick up the ass a lot too, like a shit ton.
He's acting like this is like a routine thing, like a person does 5 or 6 times a day. Get a fucking grip, dude. Not every fucking day is a story on Hustler.
Are hypocrites. They're such massive hypocrites. Or any worldly, promiscuous, hypergamous, provocative woman who's whorish.
Every human being is worldly, because if they were unworldly, it means they'd probably be dead or so incredibly spiritual at that point that they would shed all physical attachments, including the idea of intimacy.
Sure, acts like a whore even if she actually isn't. And
again, how do you define acting like a whore? What, have you actually seen one?
And is slutty and hoish and
hoish. Yeah, that's a word now.
Skank thought, whatever. A bitch.
I wish your mind wasn't so incredibly full of gunk that you could actually make one clear, concise statement instead of going 45 fucking adjectives to describe the same word.
But she
this is what happens when you eat lead-based paint as a child.
Acts too good for and too high and mighty for, burping or farting, pooping, or peeing for a guy. But then
yeah, like a person doesn't understand these creepy obsessions with bodily functions but actually enjoys sexual acts. Yes. So you see, these things are different for a reason. There are huge differences between both.
And she's so happy and glad to and willing to suck his dick and take his dick up her ass. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to be a worldly woman, if you're going to be provocative, promiscuous, and hypergamous and whatnot, then you should be all in or not at all. Because it just makes...
No, because at that point you're basically trying to force people to go along with your fetishes. It's one thing if a person chooses to do it of their own volition. It's another thing when you try to browbeat someone into doing it. That's the definition of psychological abuse in a relationship. It's basically just a more obvious version of if you do this, if you don't do this, you don't love me card that people pulled in like high school when they were complete pieces of shit.
Makes you as a woman look lukewarm. It just makes you look like a massive hypocrite. And
not really. It just means they themselves personally don't find it interesting. You're basically denying a person their preferences so that your preferences are treated as though they are a requirement instead of an option.
Whether or not you agree with me, it is a double standard.
Not really, because a person having preferences is not a double standard. Now, there are people who may demonstrate a double standard personally when it comes down to how they denounce and attack other people's preferences. It's another thing, however, when you try to make your preferences everyone else's.
Like, even if you're a guy who's into oral and anal sex, know that I fucking hate you. But even if you are a guy and are into that shit, you even should realize yourself that by women willing to do those two things, oral and anal sex, but then not perform and realize and acknowledge that, hey, there's also these fetishes that guys have of hot women burping, farting, pooping, and peeing. You know, it's like women acknowledge the fetishes of oral and anal sex. They completely and totally acknowledge those two fetishes. They admire them. They respect those fetishes.
It's not that they admire them, it's just that they view them as acceptable and tolerable depending upon the circumstance.
They love those fetishes. They care about them. Those fetishes are put up on a pedestal and pretty much worshipped in our seriously perverted, degenerate, twisted, upside-down society and culture.
Dude, you literally call everything degenerate and perverted. Meanwhile, you get off the piss and shit. Sit the fuck down. Sit the fuck down.
But then when it comes to hot women burping, farting, pooping, and peeing, which I think is much more deep, personal, and profound.
It's deep because it's coming from their fucking colon. Seriously, does everything that you think come directly from your colon? And then you just stomach it all and regurgitate the shit that just came out of you? Seriously, do you shit from your mouth instead of your ass? Is that why nothing but shit comes out of your mouth? Like you just eat backwards, and for some reason your digestive tract is all in reverse.
Found, in my opinion at least.
It's your opinion, but your opinion's damn dumb.
Because I just feel like, you know, men who are into that shit are so much more real and based.
No, they're not. Men who are into that shit are literally fucked in the head.
In my opinion, at least.
Wrong. Your opinion is still wrong. There are such things as wrong opinions, and you've actually demonstrated one right now.
And the reason I say that is because if you are a man and you truly love, care about, value, respect, and appreciate your woman, then most likely you would love even the disgusting things about her, since they are a part of her and a part of her body, and they are now.
Accepting the fact that this person is a human being with bodily needs is not the same thing as overly trying to fetishize it and get unhealthily attached to the idea. You just accept the fact that this person has the same bodily and toiletry needs that you do, with the exception of pads, obviously.
Natural as well. Burping, farting, pooping, and peeing are natural. Like,
yeah, but it's just seen as a bond.
Like, it's just common sense. Like, if you truly loved a woman,
really?
Truly loved her, like I do, for example, or at least a part of me tries to. The part of me that's not.
You have an eggplant in your head. That's where your brain should be.
Dark. Or the part of me that tries not to be dark.
Can you maybe sound like you're not gonna cry every time you open your mouth? Please.
If I loved a woman, I would
This is your bed, you must lay in it.
Love all of her. Every part of her. Even the gross parts. Her burps, her farts, her poop and pee, because to me personally, that's not gross. That's sexy.
It's because you're a fucked up shit fetishist. The reason that people love their wives is because they accept these things are more or less they're a standard behavior that every human being has. Everyone has to go to the bathroom at some point. It's not really a horrible thing, it's just a reality that we all live with.
I mean, if she's hot, if she's hot, then it's sexy. If she's not, then it's not. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Not as simple as you still.
And I wish more women realize this. Like, True men, real men, base men who love their women, their girlfriends or wives, would love all of them.
You're not a real man, though, because you don't try to stand on your own 2 feet. You don't try to confront your demons and problems. Instead, you run away from them and scream and call society a fault for having them. And the people that are married and have relationships do love these people. It's just that they're not into watching them use the bathroom because they realize that it's just that person getting rid of bodily waste. It's the same reason that you don't look at yourself pissing and suddenly think that it's attractive to people because it's literally just you having to piss. Like, what's next? Are you going to advertise drinking people's urine as a way to try to make them bond deeper in a romantic sense if they're married?
Every part of them, and they would accept every part of them. So if they had a girlfriend or a wife who was gassy a lot, they would love that. They would appreciate that. They would value.
They wouldn't really, like, here's the thing, they're not going to appreciate it, they're just going to simply say, it's okay, this is just part of you, but we should probably take you to the doctor. If it seems like it's happening an unhealthy amount, you might need to go to the hospital, because if it's hurting you, it could be a sign of something wrong with your GI tract. There would be medical concern at a certain point if it keeps happening non-stop. That or they're eating something that's genuinely bad for them.
Value that. They would respect that. They would be turned on by that and hardened by that.
No, they wouldn't be turned on by that. It would just be something that they'd either learn to live with or they would start to develop a medical concern for this person if it's happening to them an incredibly odd amount of times.
That would just make that man more and more in love with his woman and make him want to impregnate her more and more and more and more over and over
What is it with you needing everyone to get impregnated?
and over again and have as many children with her as possible.
But what if you don't really want children because you realize the world's a horrible, fucked up place and you don't want to give something so precious to the world if the world's just going to rip it apart and twist it around like it did you?
And live happily ever after with her.
What is this, a fairy tale? Was there a dragon? Was there like an angry normie dragon that was after them?
And, you know, most guys, even if they have hot girlfriends or hot wives, if their girlfriends or wives burp or fart around them, their boyfriends or husbands are disgusted. They're
Not really. It's like, yeah, it just happened. Who cared? It just happens.
grossed out.
Speaking of someone in a long-term relationship, I don't really care. Sometimes it's surprising, but I don't really care enough to say yay or nay about it. It's just a bodily function at that point.
And they scold their girlfriends and wives.
Like, what is this, 1925?
They actually get mad. And sometimes guys will literally leave. Like, some guys will literally break up with their girlfriends or wives if they ever catch their girlfriends or wives doing that shit around them, ever.
Who the fuck just leaves over a burp or a fart? If the fart is that bad, it better have been enough to fumigate that fucking house. Otherwise, you're dealing with someone who has never had a relationship with a living human being.
It will turn them off enough to the point where they'll be like
Just has a power strip on the fucking coat hanger there. Can someone explain to me why the Blair Witch movie suddenly got in color during this particular sequence?
mortified or whatever the word is that I'm looking for and leave.
Seriously, this reminds me of a scene from the movie Wreck where they had all those found footage clips on it.
Break up with their girlfriend or divorce their wife over something so little like that. That's why women, from the very start of humanity, should have gone for guys who like their burps and fart, or should I say love. Like, it's not even just a simple like. I full on love it when hot women burp, fart, poop, and pee. I would love to be around women doing like that all the time if I could. It would make me so horny, so hard.
And then you'd be kicked the fuck out of wherever the fuck you're at because people would realize the creepy fucking bathroom attendant keeps following all the women right outside the stall to listen to them having to avoid their bowels.
I would want to marry all of them. If I were around a group of hot girls doing that, I'd want to marry each and every single one of them and have kids with all of them. Every single one of them.
Yeah, because I imagine you'd be a great father figure with your lack of knowledge and your improper understanding of how to properly socialize and engage in social conventions or understand social niceties.
But I'm not that lucky in life. I'm not that privileged.
You're acting like privilege is being handed down to random motherfuckers just because they happen to not be you. You're acting like everyone in the world is given a gold medal and a ticket, like some sort of golden ticket. If you know for a fact that there are people that are just as bad off as you, if not worse.
I'm not that blessed.
He got a black pill ticket. Let's watch him cry. Honestly, like, you're the kind of person that if anyone does have sympathy for you, that sympathy is immediately undermined and just fucking blown away with a shotgun when they realize all the craziest shit you believe in and the craziest shit you say. Because instead of this sad, tortured soul that you constantly try to portray yourself as, you're just a whiny bitch who acts like the world's at fault for his personal inability to talk to a therapist and maybe consult someone about his fucked up hobbies and behaviors.
Because I'm just meant to suffer and to die alone.
Here's the thing, life itself is a game where it's all a matter of odds. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who draw the short fucking straw.
And to live alone for the rest of my miserable life.
Well, it'd be better for you to live alone than make someone else's life fucking miserable too. I mean, here's the thing. When I look at things, it's always a matter of, like, minimizing damage and trying to increase the net gain. And if everything is just damage, 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 then cut your fucking losses.
Whereas all the guys who are into oral and anal sex just live happily ever after and have such...
Yeah, because I'm sure everyone in the world that's into these things has a great life, despite the fact that some of these people might be currently in prison.
great, wonderful, paradise on earth lives. Just having...
You're acting like everyone that is not you is somehow raking in enough money to live comfortably for really nothing.
On earth, and they don't deserve it.
Why not? Because they're not you? Does everyone else deserve to suffer just because you were brought into a situation that you could have done something to change but chose not to?
They don't deserve to have any women at all.
Why? Because you decide so?
And yet they do.
Let me cry and bitch and scream about problems that I could have solved but chose not to because other people exist and I'm mad. You're such an insufferable cunt.
All the worst possible kinds and types of guys, those are the only guys who ever are successful with women or ever...
Bullshit. There are plenty of people that are monogamous, healthy, good-intentioned men who have relationships that they genuinely find rewarding. Speaking as one of those fucking people, it's kind of a retarded-ass open blanket statement to make, where you just say, anyone that has a relationship is a fucking Chad, a Pookie, a Ray Ray. No, it's literally just regular dudes. Like, I'm not some fucking douchebag sitting by the fucking lake, strumming a guitar, drinking a bunch of beers, and then talking like some dumb skater. I just had the fucking balls to ask someone out. That's literally all that it took. And then I took the time to get to know this person underneath all the layers that were previously there when the relationship just started. But people like you don't do that. You don't prefer to get to know someone as a person because you're in love with the concept of what that person represents as like the status symbol that having a woman on your arm means, instead of actually knowing what it means to genuinely be in a relationship where it requires time and patience to get to know each other.
lucky enough of ever getting with any of them.
Yeah, I know. I picked up like 3 4-leaf clovers the same day I met the missus. Yeah. Yeah, I went to my fucking stats skill and set my luck skill to like 9, and then it dropped back down to 6 afterwards. On account of my family issues and my vehicular problems that happened shortly after.
It's just unfair.
Life's not fair, and as much as this sucks, it's true.
It really is just so very unfair.
You literally made almost an hour and a half long video complaining about nothing.
Like, I don't know.
Is there anything you do fucking know? I'm serious. I'm not even trying to be a smartass. Is there anything you do know?
But I guess that's all I wanted to say in today's video.
Looking at you is literally the one way to catch depression without actually suffering from it mentally prior to this.
I know I've been talking for a while, but I had to get a lot off my chest, and
Not really. It seems like you put a lot back on your chest because now you're gonna whine about it for the next 5 days.
it's been a while since I made a video. So since it's been a while, I wanted to make a kind of long video for that reason. So let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'm out.
Yeah, let me know what you think about it in the video, so long as you personally don't disagree with me. That might as well be the fucking tagline for this. As long as you don't disagree with me, comment on the video. That's usually his whole approach to everything.